The story begins in a cave. The girl can't stand it and, from the influx of emotions, screams in horror that the situation is very bad. She says that her food supplies ran out yesterday. She then adds that this is not to mention that she only has 20 goddess points left, and suggests that she seems to be starting to go crazy. Then she deftly pulls out something that looks like a ticket and says that she did not want to resort to it, but she has no choice. Therefore, the girl decides to risk her draft ticket. She raises her hand with the ticket up and addresses the world. The girl asks to listen to her will and bring her a miracle, after which light comes from the cave. After a few seconds, a guy she doesn't know appears in front of her. Seeing this, she concludes that the call was a success, since everything went fine. The guy throws his uncomprehending look at her, after which he begins to resent. The girl greets him and informs the guy that she called him into this world. She introduces herself as Laura Jean Amara and reveals that she is the honorable first and only goddess of wisdom. Then Laura asks the guy what his name is, and he introduces himself as Kosai Keima. Then she points at him with her finger and insistently asks her to listen. The girl tells the guy that he is a man who is called from another world, must have some incredible, powerful ability. Then she, looking sternly at Keima, orders him to show this ability to her. The guy decides not to answer at first and just keeps looking at Laura. Then he still asks where he is, simultaneously indignant. Keima gets to his feet and says the situation sucks. However, the guy begins to feel that he can only accept that he has been called to another world. The girl is surprised that he does not understand anything at all, concludes that it is even better this way. Keima thinks about the fact that he usually panics very much in such situations. But then he realizes that he doesn't want to go to Japan at all. Then the guy, out of interest, wonders, does this make him abnormal? Keima asks Laura if those abilities are similar to spells and artifacts in video games. She says that if someone who does not have it passes through the gate, they will receive it as soon as they cross over to this side. The guy realizes that he doesn't seem to feel anything yet, but he quickly doesn't care, and he decides to just play along. Keima makes a serious face and says that in order to show the girl his skills, he needs an egg. Laura is very surprised by this and asks the guy again, but he once again replies that he needs an ordinary chicken egg. From that moment, 30 minutes pass, and the girl somehow finds what Keima needed. He asks the girl where her wounds came from, but she replies that it's none of his business and asks her to show her ability faster. Keima puts an egg on the table, then hits it against a glass, and the shell breaks. The girl watches this with a wary face and asks the guy what's going on. At this time, he suddenly swings and lets out a scream. And then he effectively pours the contents of the egg into a glass, after which there is an awkward silence. He turns to Laura and advises her to keep warm in cases of coolness of his ability. The girl asks Keima again and finds out that his skills are the ability to break an egg with one hand. Laura is surprised that the guy, having passed through the gate, did not receive power or something like that. He adds that if he had received it, he would definitely have shown it. Keima, on the other hand, replies that it took him 8 years to work out this skill and promises the girl that he will also learn this if he trains. She suddenly gets lost, not knowing what to say. She begins to argue that this is simply impossible. Laura then adds that even though she is the goddess of wisdom, she is in this position, and to get out of this situation, she had to use a familiar draft card. Suddenly, she rushes to the guy and asks if he really wants to say that he can only do this useless thing. But he admits that he is not fully understood yet, and asks for an explanation. Then the girl clears her throat and explains that they, the goddesses, play an important role as they help, prompt, and guide humanity. But in order for the goddesses to survive, they use the conscientiousness and prayers they receive from the parishioners and turn them into goddess classes. Keima concludes that if someone is not reasonable and lazy, then their life may be in danger, and suggests that being a goddess must be difficult. The girl immediately screams that she was just like that. She says that she spent days idling in her room, in the palace of the goddesses, and before she realized everything, her glasses were almost out. Then she was thrown right into the wild, when her existence was already in danger. Laura remembers how she begged and sobbed at the meeting of the goddesses, which is why she was given a familiar summoning ticket. The guy understands why she needed his abilities. The girl says that this is exactly the case, because her existence now depends on him, and Keima wonders if she knows that she is selfish. Then he asks what he will get in return for his help. Then Laura offers her eternal gratitude in return. She says that it is a great honor for a guy to receive gratitude from a great goddess like her, but he calls her names in response. Keima begins to get angry and realizes that he does not want to help her, since she behaves like this after she called him. Then he hears the rumbling of his stomach. The guy informs Laura that he is already hungry, but she replies that there is no food here. Keima asks if she can cook something with her divine hands, and she explains that since she is a goddess, dinners should be prepared for her. They come out of the cave, and the guy asks if there are any villages nearby. The girl replies that she has no idea, and justifies herself by saying that not even a month has passed since she was kicked out. Keima thinks he knew that Laura was a useless goddess. He informs her about it and also calls her annoying. However, their main task is still to survive. The guy asks her to take him to a place where there is food and water. Laura lazily wonders if she needs to go too. Then Keima irritably answers what is needed, and the girl agrees. While walking, she notices fruits growing on a tree, and he notices animals lying nearby. Keima asks if it would be better to hunt animals, but the girl replies that there are many poisonous monsters in the forest. Then the guy thinks about it, and Laura decides to compare the status of the beast with the average inhuman one. She says that an adventurer's status at level 20 gives him 160 HP, and a level 2890 lion has 35,000 HP. Keima assumes that since he came from another world, he may be stronger than this lion, but the girl thinks that his level is no more than 3. The guy gets upset because he realizes that he is weaker than a beginner, and Laura says that she will be able to see his status if she accumulates enough points, after which she asks him to look. She says that the snake uses its tail to find prey, and then attacks those who think that the lion is asleep. Laura adds that the lion attacks those who can eat fruits nearby while Keima is imagining it. He notices that the girl is quite smart, and she agrees, after which she accidentally sneezes. This makes the guy furious, once again thinking that Laura is a useless goddess. The lion, hearing extraneous sounds, suddenly wakes up. The girl rushes to Keima, asking what they should do, and he tells her to run and decides to try to distract the beast. Then she starts running away, shouting at the guy not to do reckless things. At this time, the lion and the snake approach the guy. He thinks that it is necessary to monitor the movements of the enemy and move accordingly. The beast opens its big mouth. The animal rushes at Keima, but he steps aside and pushes him away. Then the guy lands on the ground and does a somersault. Suddenly, 3 fruits fall from the tree, and Keima decides to take them. Hiding behind a tree, he hopes that this lion, as in his world, will not leave its territory in search of a victim. After a while, the beast leaves, and the guy exhales with relief, thinking that it was close. He returns to the cave, and already there, a frightened Laura is surprised by his appearance. She rushes at Keima and begins to thank God that he is alive. The guy pats her on the head and asks if the girl has been crying all this time. He thinks that Laura, by nature, has always been honest, although mostly she just takes it out. However, it seems to the hero that this will not last all the time. Keima hands her a fruit and asks her to take it. The girl begins to doubt, and then he explains that he gives it for telling her everything about Leo. Then he adds that he simply cannot leave Laura alone, since they are in the same boat, and she suddenly calls out to him. She rushes at Keima again, shouting his name. The girl expresses her gratitude, and then he asks him to let go. Then they cut up the fruits and start eating. The girl tastes the fruit and admires how delicious it is. Keima is also trying the fruit, when suddenly the girl asks him to look at something. A characteristic opens in front of him, in which his increased level was shown. The girl informs Keima that he has earned level 7 and explains that, thanks to him, she was able to accumulate enough goddess points. But the guy suddenly remembers that this requires conscientiousness and prayers, but then Laura points to the given fruit. She says that these qualities are not limited to feelings alone, so gifts are also suitable, and the guy is surprised at how quickly everything turned into her selfishness. Keima wonders why the level has increased, and the girl assumes that it is because of his ability. She opens his ability window, sees that of the usual abilities there is breaking eggs with her hand and cooking them, and of the additional ones, absorbing magic. The latter surprises them very much. They open a reference book that says it's a legendary SS level ability. The owner of this ability absorbs the experience points and abilities of those he eats. If the target does not have this, then additional points are absorbed. With repeated acquisitions, the experience of abilities increases, And with increasing level, the amount of experience to increases. Keima says that this is a cool ability and decides to rephrase the information. He concludes that his ability is to break an egg and admits that it is confusing. The girl agrees with him as she considers it useless. She says that the second level of ability is something average. On the third, the owner can be considered advanced, and on the fifth, a high-class expert. Does he imagine how many eggs you need to break to earn level 6? But the guy says he doesn't want to hear anything from her, and then she concludes that she shouldn't have given him divine gratitude. Keima asks her about it. After that, Laura opens a window in front of him with his characterization as a believer. She says that with the help of a believer's glasses, a guy can get special abilities, showing that he has 5 of them. He asks Laura about it, and then she reminds him that she promised him eternal gratitude. Keima understands what the girl meant. He is interested in what abilities there are, and she shows them. The guy decides to choose poison resistance, but Laura explains that at level 1, only food poisoning and the weakest poisons will be removed. Keima reminds that she herself said that there are many poisonous monsters in the forest, and the girl agrees with him. Then the guy adds that if they take water and drink it without filtration, then such protection of the stomach will be useful. Laura suddenly screams that he is a genius, but he replies that these were just obvious things. The girl admits that she never thought about it and assumes that the guy was some kind of sage in the past, and Keima replies that he knew that she was not very smart. Laura finds this rude and explains that goddesses rarely get access to the fountain of knowledge. The guy is interested in this, after which she tells him that this is a place where all the knowledge of the world is collected. Now he understands that even if he has knowledge, it will not be of any use if he does not know how to apply it. Then Keima takes a look at his hands and realizes that just recently he was an ordinary guy, when suddenly he got the ability Absorption Magic and decides that he needs to use it again. Laura informs that she is thirsty, suggesting that she go look for water, and the guy suggests going. Walking through the forest, Keima notices some strange creatures. The girl says that these are Cleons that can be aggressive. Then the guy says that he seems to have stopped drinking, but Laura begins to resent as she has been looking for this place for a long time. He thinks it will be difficult to get to the water and asks the girl to show the status window of the Cleons. She opens a window that shows the 10th level. The guy asks if it is possible to see their abilities, but Laura replies that it is impossible. Keima realizes that there are many monsters and does not know what skills they have. However, he will have to deal with these clicks alone. Suddenly, the girl sneezes again, and the guy turns to her with a very unhappy face while the monsters notice them. One Cleon charges his punch, and Keima rushes to Laura to cover for her, calling her stupid. When they fall to the ground, he tells the girl to go back to the cave, and she agrees. The guy grabs a stick and prepares to attack. He turns to the monsters and says that he has nothing against them, but the strongest survives. The Cleones begin to attack Keima with their tentacles. He successfully dodges and begins to fight back. After a while, he returns from the lake with the loot, saying that the other monsters decided not to chase him. When a guy approaches the cave, he thinks that everyone here does not want to be distracted from their business. Upon arrival, a joyful Laura rushes at him. Keima gives her a light slap on the head, and then she asks what she did. He replies that the girl knows everything herself and decides not to develop this topic. Then the guy shows that he has brought enough water and hands Laura the monsters. He asks if they can be eaten. The girl replies that everything is possible except the red parts. Keima says that he wants a non-blunt and non-breakable knife. The girl says she can give him a new one, but it will cost the goddess points, and then the guy asks more politely. She asks to hear her will and bring her a miracle, telling her her full name. Suddenly, a knife appears in the air and falls into the guy's hands. Keima is surprised by this, but the girl says that he can buy one in a regular store. Then the guy starts cooking. First, he cuts up meat and other products and then puts everything on a plate. As a result, they get sashimi from the Cleon. Keima tastes the dish and says that it tastes slippery and delicate, with notes of sweetness, when suddenly a girl calls out to him. She asks to give her a taste too, and the guy holds out a piece, thinking that she at least gave him a knife. He imagines how Laura will also admire the food while the tentacles wrap around her. Suddenly, Keima notices that his level has also increased and learns that he has received a new ability, Ice Needle. A little later, he tries to use this ability, and he succeeds. The surprised guy walks up to the tree with needles and examines the ice. Since it was ordinary ice, the water problems have now been solved. Suddenly, a thought comes to Keima. He decides to cook another portion of sashimi, and as expected, his level rises. Then he notices the numbers near the level and assumes that this is an experience. The girl confirms this and says that when the experience reaches the end, the level will increase. Keima recalls the absorption of magic. He thinks about the fact that even though he gets a little experience from eating, however, now the guy can do nothing and get a level just by having lunch. And that's not to mention that he can get other abilities. The guy thinks it's the best thing that could have happened to him. Keima is thinking about the future with this ability. He can't imagine how strong an ability he can get if he eats a strong creature. The guy thinks that now, with such an ability, no one will challenge him, and he will be able to live a quiet, carefree life. He says that there is no need to worry about food and water, and Laura, out of generosity, offers to help him and tell him about the place to hunt. But Keima refuses and just asks her to be more attentive. He explains that he just doesn't want to be in such a situation again. Laura begins to promise that next time she will be more useful and asks not to leave her, and then he agrees. And so his new life began. Keima says that he was recognized as a goddess in this world and received a special skill, raising the level with food. Now he wants to test his capabilities. They approach the chicken coop, and the guy notices that the chickens are flying. He remembers that Laura looked battered after the extraction of the egg and asks about it. She says that the chickens were running after her, and then the guy apologizes for disturbing her with this. Then she decides to catch the birds and starts saying something to Keima, but he does not listen and asks her again. The girl starts swearing and orders them to attack them when she uses her divine glasses to prevent them from sneaking away. Keima does not let the girl in and again advises her to return to the cave. Laura refuses, as she wants to restore her honor, but he says that she will lose it again soon. Then she pushes him away and says that she will do everything herself, after which she rushes forward. The girl uses a divine aura. It is a magic that uses the awesome power of the goddess to intimidate the enemy. After that, the opponent will only be able to fall to his knees. However, this aura cannot be used without goddess glasses, so it doesn't work. The chickens start attacking her, and Laura asks the guy for help. He fully expected this and decides to help. He uses an ice needle and asks the girl not to cry if he hits her. The needles begin to fly apart and pierce the chickens around. Keima then begins to collect them, while the girl complains about being pinched on the cheek. He suggests that she collect the loot and leave. Suddenly, 2 roosters appear in front of him. Laura starts screaming that these are hellish cockerels. The guy suddenly grabs her and says that he remembered what she could be useful for. They use a secret technique, the divine barrier. A guy can use a goddess as bait to protect himself from attacks. He really asks Laura to dodge, but she asks to discuss everything. The chickens start attacking her, and she starts running away. The guy thinks that the situation is heating up, although he sees that the girl is coping. On the way to the cave, Laura complains of abrasions. She's swearing at the chickens. Seeing that the guy is not listening to her, she asks if he is offended, and then he calls her a useless goddess. He says he's tired of dealing with her problems. Laura begins to hesitate and justifies herself by saying that she has not yet got into shape, but this does not convince the guy. Then she apologizes and promises that from now on she will obey. Looking at her, he gets more and more disappointed, when suddenly an idea comes to his mind. The guy remembers that Laura is honest and loyal, after which he says that he will forgive her on one condition. They are making a bonfire in the cave. The girl asks why she has to do manual labor, although she is not averse to helping Keima, and he asks her to talk less and do more. He plucks the chicken and tries to bite it. As expected, the guy gets a new ability, a flamethrower. Then they decide to cook the meat. Keima uses his new ability and creates fire. As a result, they get grilled chicken. The guy tastes the meat and admires its taste. Seeing how he enjoys his meal, the girl decides to remind herself. Keima tells her to stop staring and holds out a chicken leg. Laura bites her with pleasure. She calls this dish exquisite. She continues to eat when suddenly she remembers something. The girl begins to worry that the meat of forest chickens can cause poisoning, but Keima does not worry about this since he has immunity. Suddenly, she grabs her stomach and, running away, asks the guy not to look in her direction. A few days later, they go back to the lake to catch clones. The guy calls for fire, and a scary face appears in front of him. Then he tells me that he hunted in the forest with the goddess every day and gained experience by eating even the bark of a tree. When they arrive at the chicken coop, they notice that it is quite quiet there, and the girl concludes that the heavenly king of chickens has returned. She reveals that this is the main boss of the chicken coop, crowned by one of the four holy beings, and Keima recalls how she called ordinary chickens nasty. He introduces the virtues of different monsters and the king, after which he says that you cannot be afraid of chickens, but Laura asks you to stop underestimating them and be careful. Creeping up to the nest, they see the sleeping heavenly king, Suzaku. The guy asks if when a bird is in the nest, it just sleeps, and Laura confirms this. He decides not to miss this opportunity and pulls out a knife. Suddenly, Suzaku wakes up and takes off. Keima sees the powers of one of the four kings and realizes that even when he sleeps, his strength and spirit are incredible. Despite his fear, the guy still rushes at Suzaku. He stabs a chicken with a knife and says it's pretty tragic. So the heavenly king Suzaku was defeated. They return to the cave, and the guy decides to have a snack. His flamethrower ability is now upgraded to level 5. Keima thinks that if level 3 is not bad anymore, then by level 5 he has high expectations. Then he decides to remember about the ability to kick with a dirty foot and opens the corresponding window. The guy says that a week has passed since he got into this forest, and his level has increased to 16. He decides to look at all his abilities and explains that in addition to eating monsters, he also got abilities from feeding Laura. Keima spent a lot of points on healing magic, and he can't cook scrambled eggs without eggs. In addition, he understands that purification magic is also indispensable. However, there is one thing that the guy does not regret choosing at all: swordsmanship. Suddenly, a girl calls out to him. She shows him a sword made of white silver, which she made herself. Laura then adds that since the guy helped her regain her strength, it's the least she can do. He thanks her. And then, looking at the forest, she offers Keima to test his strength. Walking along the path, the guy wonders which of the most powerful monsters he can defeat, and Laura remembers the rabid boar. Then she adds that his habitat is right here. The girl points to the tree and explains that it is a chocolate tree, and Keima decides to try it. He thinks it really tastes like chocolate when suddenly Laura screams, which is so unfair. She starts jumping, saying she wants to try it too. And the guy, seeing her unsuccessful attempts, decides to help. Quite by accident, he grabs her. Keima notices something strange because his hands began to move on their own. Laura immediately screams, and the guy apologizes. He starts to make excuses, but the girl doesn't need his apologies. Then Keima gives her a chocolate branch and she tastes it. However, after a while, she starts freaking out again. The guy throws everything on her floor and promises not to touch her anymore. Laura asks him again, and seeing how he justifies himself, decides to trust him. Suddenly, a rabid boar comes out of the bushes, and then Keima pulls out his sword. The mad boar appears in front of the girl and the guy, and they begin to prepare for battle. Keima notices that their indicators differ slightly, because he has only 563 levels, and the monster has 808. The girl says that it looks difficult, but assumes that if the guy uses his abilities, then victory will be easy. At this time, the boar grunts and rushes at him. Keima first decides to try the flamethrower ability, and, stretching out his hand, summons fire. A strong flame begins to come from his hand, burning everything and everything in its path. The shocked guy exclaims that he doesn't understand what it was. After the fire disappears, the guy sees that the boar was not injured at all and is very surprised by this. Then, the fire monster starts running at him, and he prepares to attack. But suddenly, the boar stops, and his already lifeless body falls to the ground. Keima exhales with relief. He realizes that his ability, gained from Suzaku, does terrible things. The girl admires him and says that he can beat anyone. To begin with, the guy decides to butcher the boar meat. Then he impales the pieces on the sword and brings it to the fire. Keima salts everything with the salt that Laura gave him and thinks the food looks great. As a result, he gets a boar steak. Tasting the meat, the guy thinks that the taste is similar to lean pork and feels the subtle taste of umami. Suddenly, a window pops up in front of him and he gets a new ability, Powerful Jerk. It's not such a flashy skill, but it's strong. After that, Keima continued to raise his level and realized it only 3 days later. His level has risen to 843. The The girl screams that she also wants to eat something healthy and gives the example of a chicken. The guy reminds her that the chicken contains poison, and then Laura remembers something. She says that if she spends enough goddess points, she can get poison resistance too. After that, she calls herself a real smart girl, and the guy reluctantly agrees with her. They go for a walk in the woods. Laura is going to look for chickens, and Keima is watching her mood. Suddenly, he notices something out of the corner of his eye and immediately rushes to the girl. Keima covers her, and something flies over them. Suddenly, they hear a voice praising Keima for being able to dodge, and the guy thinks it's telepathy. He sees a chicken that appears to be the strongest of the 4 heavenly kings, the recklessly brave Byakko. The guy asks if he really decided to avenge his friend, but he calls it nonsense. Byakko reveals that he and Suzaku are rivals, that when Suzaku's killer appears before him, the warrior instinct demands to face him in battle. Then Keima asks the rooster to show his abilities. The guy looks at his enemy and at first thinks that he is quite medium-sized, but then he notices that Byakko's aura and strength are the same as Suzak's. He holds out his sword, and then the rooster orders him to fight. Byakko rushes at the guy with reckless bravery, and he uses the flamethrower skill. Suddenly, something happens, and his flame disappears. Keima realizes that the rooster has cancelled his ability and becomes enraged. With his powerful attack, Byakko knocks the guy down and tears his clothes off. From such force, Keima breaks through several trees and eventually falls to the ground. He realizes that the cock has only grazed him and has already caused such damage, while Byakko decides to be surprised that the guy was able to avoid a direct blow. He rushes at Keima, shouting that he is finished. They release an ice needle. But the rooster releases fire from its beak. The guy realizes that he is using the flame to repel the attack, and therefore attacks him from the blind. The needles bend around the flame and fall into the Byakko. Keima thinks that at least for a little bit, but he was able to bring down his ardor and decides not to waste his chance. He uses the powerful jerk that he received from the boar. The hero impales a rooster with his silver sword. The last thing Byakko has time to shout is that fighting such a strong opponent without hesitation is a great job. Now, another heavenly king has been defeated. The guy lands on the ground. Laura rushes to him. She tells him not to do such reckless things alone anymore, and Keima apologizes for making her worry. He realizes that the heavenly king Byakko has been defeated and thinks that this is the first opponent he can call worthy. Suddenly, the guy realizes that it was close, because he seriously thought he was going to die. However, after this near-death struggle, Byakko went straight into Keima's stomach. The guy gets 2 new abilities, Reckless Bravery and Drilling Spiral. A week later, its level increased from 843 to 1226. The girl climbs into a barrel of water and relaxes. She thinks about how wonderful it is to live such an elegant life, absolutely without any worries. While Laura is lying quietly in the water, a snake suddenly crawls up to her. At that moment, Keima, who had already repaired his clothes, was lying on the ground and thinking that it was time to get out of this forest. He wants stability, a soft crib, and to try adventures that are not life-threatening. Suddenly, a frightened Laura, wrapped in a towel, runs to him. The guy decides to ignore her, thinking that he has been very bored here lately. He wants to enjoy life in this world more. The girl screams that she has had enough, and says that she has had enough, and says that she wants to leave this forest as soon as possible. Keima admits that he thought about it too, and she remembers that he said the same thing 3 days ago. Laura asks how long the guy will be fooling around, raising his level. In addition, she wants him to pick her up when he gets ready to leave. Then the guy gets up and pokes her in the face with his finger, asking her to remind him why they suddenly found themselves in the forest. The girl replies that she's been thinking about it a little, and Keima says that although he is not the nicest person, he has enough worries of his own. Then the guy turns around and advises Laura not to rely on him if she really wants to get out of here. He says she has to learn to stand up for herself. She thinks about it and remembers that she was told something similar in the palace of the goddesses before Keima appeared. She was told that she might have awakened her divine powers, but her behavior was still unworthy of a goddess. Then Laura was advised to think about her behavior and start presenting herself as befits a goddess of her status. She begins to get angry at being treated like a fool, despite the fact that she tries very hard. Then the girl says that she doesn't care about Keima and promises to get out of the forest on her own, calling him a scoundrel. He remains alone and decides to drink tea, enjoying the peace and quiet. 2 hours pass. Keima begins to think that the girl will return soon, when suddenly a cute baby bird sits on his head. The guy puts it on the palm of his hand, not understanding why he worries about Laura. He says that Keima said too much, that he doesn't watch his tongue, and he starts to get indignant. Then the chick flies away, and the guy starts to feel empty. He remembers how honest and sympathetic the girl was even from the very beginning of their acquaintance. Suddenly, he hears a scream and sees her running away from the chickens. Keima immediately grabs a sword and uses fire. He reflects all the poisonous needles when suddenly a rooster appears in front of him and is surprised at what the man who killed his comrades is capable of. The rooster appears to Genbu, the wisest among the heavenly kings. He then explains that he did not come to fight and reveals that he and Sairo studied him. The rooster says that they want to find out which of them is stronger and invites him to a duel. If he refuses, he promises to come in the middle of the night and crow incessantly, and Keima realizes that he clearly does not want this. Then the rooster flies away, and the guy rushes to Laura. She thanks him, and the guy offers to get out of the woods as soon as possible. About the duel, he says that he is merging, and the girl asks him to think again. Keima suggests that there may be traps in their territory where they will fight. Therefore, the best option would be to ignore them and merge. But if they come back, he'll fight on his own territory, and besides, the guy doesn't want to be cornered like last time. Laura admires how smart he is. The hero thinks that she is very simple-minded. Suddenly, she gets stuck and starts saying that she has no intention of relying on him. Then the guy calls out to her. Keima says that even if there is a 1 in 10,000 chance that incredible abilities will be revealed in her, he does not see it at all yet. However, he adds that he would not want to miss the opportunity to see it. Then Laura rushes into his arms, screaming that she was lonely, and he exhales with relief. So they go in search of the nearest settlement. Laura, wearing a travel cape, suggests going to the nearest city and going somewhere while Keima remains standing. Suddenly she comes back to him and says that she doesn't even know which way to go. The guy asks how she used that fountain of knowledge in general and if she knows at least the approximate geography of this place. The girl replies that she knows. She says that if she sees the route at least once, she could use the fountain of knowledge and make a map. However, Laura cannot calculate the length of the path from point A to point B. Then Keima concludes that she just needs to see the city to find out how to get to it. Suddenly, he grabs the girl and she starts screaming. The guy jumps up. He sees a city in the distance. Laura starts screaming for help, and he asks her to stop shaking and look at the city. When they land, the girl gets on all fours and asks not to do that anymore. From that moment on, they begin the journey. Keima says that they destroyed all the monsters in their path, and in order to get out of the forest without attracting attention, they walked on foot. Laura asks what the guy is doing. He replies that he collects materials from monsters, fangs, skins, and scales, anything that can be worth anything. They can sell it and make money. He asks Laura to use her ability to find out the price of the items. She fulfills the request. After 3 days, they finally reach the city, and Keima's level improves to 1256. The fortress city of Kelville appears in front of the girl and the guy. A joyful Laura points to the city, and Keima asks her to stop running around and take a place in the queue. Then he notices that half-humans in this world are completely normal and begins to feel this world in a different way. Suddenly, 2 guards block his passage. One of them says that Keima must show his ID so that he can be allowed into the city, and he asks him again. Then the guy asks Laura about the ID. She says that a certificate is a special card that indicates the job, rank, and social status of a citizen in society. She then adds that Keima can get a certificate from any guild. He realizes that he needs a certificate to work and trade, when suddenly the guards decide to ask how he has survived so far without such basic information. The guy replies that he came from a faraway country and did not know about these border rules. Then the guards advise him to look into the Adventurers Guild, as there he will be able to get his status and a guild card that can be used as an identity card. Keima asks if this is really possible, to which they reply that if the guys became bandits in the future, they would have more problems. They enter the city, and the guy thanks the guards when suddenly he is stopped again, and, because of his clothes, they ask where exactly he came from. Then Laura enters into the dialogue and tells them that they have just arrived from the direction of the northern forest. Upon hearing this, the guards begin to laugh. They say that this forest is so dangerous that even B-rank adventurers do not always cope in fights and continue to laugh, believing that a child would have come up with something better. Keima decides to leave as soon as possible, angry that no one told him that this forest is very dangerous. They come to the Kelville Adventurers Guild. At the reception desk, a girl named Effa greets them and asks if they have come to her for an identity card. Then she realizes that she has another problem, because she is now facing two incomprehensible people with an unknown history. Keima says that the guard sent them there and asks about the opportunity to get a job. The girl responds positively and explains that in this city, the reward for completed tasks is based on the rank in the guild. Beginners start at G rank, the lowest, and complete 5 tasks to rise to F rank. Effa then adds that for ranks E and above, they will need to take a promotion exam. The guy understands everything that he is asking if he will have to start with G rank anyway, even if he is already stronger. However, the girl replies that their guild is built on trust and, therefore, do not do any adventures. Then Keima realizes that he, like everyone else, will have to start from the bottom when suddenly Laura calls out to him. She says that if they raise their ranks, their income will increase, and since their rank is based on the number of completed tasks, then they need to take a lot of simple tasks. Seeing the guy's face, the girl assumes that she said something wrong, but he explains that he was surprised that she said at least something smart. Suddenly, Effie notices that the guy looks pretty confident for someone who hasn't started yet, but decides not to pay attention to it. She realizes that their behavior is quite normal and begins to formalize them. But before that, he asks Laura and Keima to pay a contribution of 30,000 to the leopard and, in case of lack of money, offers them a receipt for the debt. The guy realizes that they don't have any money. He decides to try to sell the trophy from the monsters, which shocks the girl. She offers 40,000 to Barca for everything, but considers it too risky to deal with an unknown person. Then Effie asks the guy to remember that trust is the most valuable quality in Kelville. Then she approves their signatures in receipts and issues 2 certificates that respond only to magic and the owner's fingerprints. Laura takes the card and admires its appearance. Suddenly, Keima suggests that now she may find motivation to do something, and she begins to justify herself. When they looked at the list of tasks on the bulletin board, they decided to take the task of collecting caterpillar larvae for 1,000 leopards. Effie exhales heavily, and her colleague notices that she looks rather tired, and she agrees. The girl remembers Keima. She says that he took one of the most difficult assignments. Effie is sure that the guy is already running back in tears, but her colleague begins to claim that she has character problems. Suddenly, Keima returns to the guild with a report on the completion of the task. Surprised, Effie thinks it's a mistake, but the seal of the customer himself says otherwise. Then she gives 2 silver coins, which are worth 1,000 bars, and wishes good luck in the next task. When Keima leaves, the girl immediately changes and wonders, who are they? At this time, he and Laura are walking around the city. The guy remembers that he heard somewhere that a room for 2 costs just 1,000 bars per night. Seeing that Laura doesn't answer anything, he asks what's wrong. The girl says she misses luxury restaurants and resorts, but Keima informs her that they will not be there. Then they decide to go to the Crescent Tavern. The establishment is run by adventurers. It was very noisy inside. Keima begins to realize that they stand out here when suddenly they are addressed as newcomers. It was a girl who introduced herself as Asha, the owner and manager of this tavern. The guy thinks that the cheap rooms are not bad, and the hostess asks him to follow her. The guys sit down at the table and get to know Asha. Sometime later, she brings them dinner. Keima asks her what kind of dish it is, and the girl replies that it is a sandwich with an ordinary frog. Laura hears about the frog and reports that she is not hungry, but the guy asks her to stop showing off and start eating. She immediately begins to admire the taste. The girl says her heart is about to jump out. The guy turns to Asha and admits that it was amazing, which makes her happy. Then the girl says that she, as the owner of this institution, is pleased to hear that the guys managed to experience the goodwill of this city, after which she leaves. Keima turns to Laura and asks if there are goddesses, in her opinion, but she just asks to admire her more often. Suddenly, their conversation attracts the men at the next table. One of them notices that Keima has the courage to flirt with Asha, while the other admits that he does not like him. Then they decide to teach the guy a lesson, but they are stopped by a third man because he had an idea. He approaches Keima and, placing a beer glass in front of him, offers to drink at his own expense. The guy tries to refuse, but Laura says that at his age, everyone is already drinking beer. In order not to lead to a fight, he agrees and tries the drink. Keima likes the drink, and the man notices that he is doing a good job. He reminds me that he will pay himself, thinking that he will get the guy so drunk that he will disgrace himself all over the city. For a while, Keima continues to drink one mug after another, and the man is surprised by this. He can't let the guy drink him too much, and asks the waitress to bring more beer. The man asks several more times to bring some mugs. And after 2 hours, he gets really drunk. Eventually, he falls backwards off his chair and begins to vomit. People are beginning to be amazed that such a persistent person could be drunk by a novice. His colleagues calm him down, calling him Aniki, and take him away while he demands to continue. Keima realizes that his ability to resist poisons also prevents intoxication. Suddenly, he hears Asha's voice asking if he is resistant to alcohol. The guy thinks that the girl came too close, but he can't say it. Then Asha admits that she also likes to drink, and that she gives a head start to many, since many gentlemen couldn't even catch up with her. When she saw Keima drinking, she felt that fate had brought them together. Suddenly, Asha changes and apologizes for her rude behavior, but the guy asks her not to worry. Then the girl offers to keep it a secret and leaves. From that day on, cheap taverns for Keima became the best. Asha turns to the guy and says that fate brought them together, calling him dear. Then the girl hugs him, and they both find themselves without clothes. She says she can't hold back her feelings anymore and hugs her. At this time, Keima is sleeping, hugging a pillow, when suddenly he falls out of bed. Laura finds him like this. She asks you not to scare her so early in the morning. The guy asks what she's mad at, and the girl recalls his conversation with Asha, trying to prove that she's not jealous of him. Keima decides to soak up a little by the bed, but the pillow is too hard for him. Then he asks Laura if she can make soft futons, and she clarifies what he means. The guy assumes that it will be easier for them to make money if she creates things that can be sold. But the girl replies that it is forbidden for everyone except the minions of the goddess. She then adds that if someone breaks this rule, they will be punished, and Keima understands everything. Its level has increased to 1335. They go to the Adventurers Guild, where the evil Aniki is already waiting for them. The guy thanks him for paying for them yesterday, but he only says that he lost yesterday due to an accident and demands a rematch the other day. After that, the men leave, advising Keima to be careful, and he realizes that this man does not give up. The guy decides to check Anika's stats. He sees that the man is only level 60, and Laura explains that he is quite strong compared to an ordinary level 2030 adventurer. She then adds that Keima can become an important person by having a 3-digit level. Now he understands why he looks strange with his 1335 level, and Laura supports him. In addition, the guy learned how to use magic immediately after arriving in this world, despite the fact that magic is a rare talent. Suddenly, he notices a suitable order. Since he needs to master fire magic, they decide that the order was just created for them. But suddenly, another person declares it. Someone starts reaching for the sheet, and reaches for the Keima. He turns around and sees a girl with rabbit ears, a dog's tail, and decides that she is a beastman. She decides to give the sheet to the guy, and he tears it off. Keima offers her a task on the pretext that she really wanted to take it. Then he adds that there are still a bunch of orders they can take. The girl says that she failed 3 orders in a row, although her specialty is fire magic and takes an order from a guy. She diligently thanks Keima and promises never to forget it. He asks her not to exaggerate, and the girl leaves. Suddenly, Laura asks the guy why he talks to all the girls except her like that, and he replies that he likes cute and polite girls. The girl with the ears goes to the production workshop. The mustachioed man thanks her for accepting the order and helping. Then he grins and, in his mind, calls her insignificant, realizing that 4,000 leopards will go nowhere. A man knows that if his furnace is used with the help of magic, it will significantly reduce the release of harmful substances from the incinerated garbage. But since there is a lot of moisture in the raw garbage, it will take a lot of mana to burn it completely. At this time, the girl collects all the garbage and uses a fireball. After that, she is asked to burn another 20 goblin-sized bags, and she begins to resent it. The man makes excuses, saying that he found them by accident. He promises to pay in full and says he believes in the goodness of her heart. The girl turns away, thinking that she is not such a strong magician, and then he asks if she really lacks skills. In the end, she decides to use a fireball. Suddenly, she falls to the ground and says that her mana is over, but the man praises her for her work. Then he hands her the money, but the girl asks why she got only 300 bars. The man replies that since she could not burn all the garbage, then, referring to the rules of the guild, this should be considered as an unfulfilled task. However, he adds that he gave her 300 bars for her suffering, and the girl notices that he asked to burn more garbage than he indicated in the order. But then the man turns around and says that she's not a real magician and no one will hire her. He suggests that the girl should stop practicing magic because of such a naive attitude. She starts crying and leaves. Walking down the street, the girl thinks what to do because she will not be able to pay for her room, having only 300 bars. Suddenly, she stumbles. The girl falls to the ground. She realizes that she is starting to lose consciousness due to a lack of mana. It starts to get dark in her eyes, and she hears someone's voice. When the girl wakes up, Keima notices it. She jumps up, sees him and Laura, and recognizes them. The guy promises that they won't do anything to her and decides to introduce himself. He gives his name and the name of his girlfriend. The girl introduces herself to Famiel and apologizes for bothering her. She thinks that even though the guys are weird, they don't behave like bad people and talks about the order. Laura is infuriated by the story. She says she can't forgive this, and Keima agrees with her. He offers to report this to the guild, but Famiel admits that she agreed to these conditions, and therefore it will be difficult to make a violation report. Then Laura, referring to the condition of the order, offers to remove all the garbage, meaning a man, but the guy says that her jokes are terrible. The girl asks if he will really let injustice prevail. He begins to hesitate. Seeing such a reaction, she says that if he is not going to help, then she will do everything herself, when suddenly the guy stops her. Keima admits that he is not sure that the girl will cope on her own and asks to leave it to him. Laura smiles, and they go to the workshop. The guy asks Famiel to wait at the entrance, and she agrees. At this time, the man was counting his money and rejoices that the newcomers are so gullible. Suddenly, someone calls out to him and he turns around. The man asks who they are, and Keima introduces himself as an acquaintance of the girl who took his order. He thinks that the guys are just as simpletons as Famiel and decides to drive them away. The man asks what they want from him. The guy tells me that he heard about the violation. The same one stops him, asking not to spread rumors about what did not happen, and explains that he changed the details of the order with the consent of the girl. As a result, he accuses Famiel of being too weak. The man says that he was full of good intentions and did not expect that such an inept girl would accept him. In addition, he asks for thanks for giving her a chance. Keima thinks about it and asks himself the question, how can he cope with someone who is weaker without killing him? An idea comes to him while the man does not understand anything. The guy pushes him against the wall, assuming that he doesn't mind if Keima gets an A rank and destroys his store. The man asks if he has said everything and becomes furious. He pushes Keima away, asking him not to make her laugh like that. The man says he knows everything about them and orders them to stop being heroic. He starts threatening the guards, and the guy asks where the garbage from the order is stored. A little while later, the guys find garbage, and the guy suggests what needs to be done. The girl confirms his guesses. Keima realizes that a large amount of magic will be needed to burn and decides to use 15% of his power. He decides to proceed while the man is amazed at what is happening. Flames are coming out of the guy's hand. The fire knocks down a man. After that, nothing remains in the oven. Then Keima turns to the man. He introduces himself and says that he will soon become the strongest in this city. The guy assumes that if he wants to become his enemy, he will be able to imagine the consequences of this. Laura adds that Keima is wonderful, and the man begins to think that this is just a bad dream. But then he admits his guilt and agrees to give the money back. Then the guy concludes that everything is solved. The man pays 4,000 burrs for the initial order, 12,000 for additional work, and 30,000 for the difficulties caused. The result was 46,000 bars. Keima counts everything, and the man asks him to get out if he is satisfied with everything. The guys are about to leave, and the guy thinks about how tense the situation was. Suddenly, Famiel calls out to them. The three of them sit down on a bench, and Keima offers to split the reward in half, and Laura agrees with him. They give half to Famiel, and she is very embarrassed. She nervously starts counting, and the guys ask what happened to her. The girl explains that it's just the first time she sees such an amount. Keima says that he was only an escort and advises Famille to thank Laura instead. Then the girl expresses her great gratitude. Then the guy offers to have a snack with them together, since they have money. Suddenly, she finally decides on something, and insistently begins to ask Keima to take her as an apprentice. Keima asks if Famille is sure that he will take her as an apprentice, and she confirms her words. The girl says that from the moment she saw the guy, she realized that if she was with him, she would have a chance to stop being so useless. Keima begins to hesitate. He says he can't take an apprentice when he doesn't have enough adventure experience himself. Famille admits that her request is reckless. She promises to work hard and fulfill any wish, assignment, and generally everything that she is told. From this, the guy assumes that the girl is in a difficult situation when suddenly she hands him something. Keima asks what it is, and Famille replies that it is a memorable gift from her father. She says that her deceased father was a famous adventurer who traveled the world. The girl remembers how she admired her father and dreamed of becoming like him when she was little. Therefore, after reaching adulthood, in order to understand the world of adventure better, she decided to go to the National Magic Academy. Laura wonders if this magic school is the one that has produced countless successful magicians over the years, and family says yes. She says that some graduates with a guild recommendation can turn to her for help anywhere, and even start with a D rank. In order to make her dream come true, Famille devoted her time to studying in order to pass the exam successfully. However, when it came to magic, she couldn't handle it. The girl didn't know any spells except for the fireball. She failed the final exam many times, and eventually she was expelled. But Famille didn't want to give up, because she still had a chance to start all over again. Then Keima understands why she started with G rank. The girl admits that she knows that she was not created to become an adventurer. She says that the guys are her last hope, and even if it doesn't work, she promises to give up and start looking for another job. Finally, Famille admits that she does not want to regret that she has not done this so far. Looking at this, Keima decides to take her as an apprentice. He immediately warns that he may not help her, but at least give her some advice. The girl starts thanking him, and Laura says she's amazing anyway. Walking around the city, Laura admits that she never thought about her future like Famille. At this time, Keima thinks that he has become an adventurer on a whim and cannot advise his student anything. Suddenly, he notices people, followed by a food tent, and offers to go there. There they are greeted by that girl and asks if the guys would like to try the luxurious round bread. The guy asks her again, and she explains that in their tribe, the recipe for such a delicious baked treat has been passed down from generation to generation. The girl starts cooking. First, she kneads the dough, then covers the outside with breadcrumbs. Then she adds a sumptuous sauce and seals the edges. Finally, the girl puts the bread in the oven and slowly bakes it. Keima thinks that it is quite unusual for a food tent to sell such things and decides to buy one package. The girl serves sumptuous round bread and warns that the loaves may be hot. Laura says that the bread looks delicious, and she is advised to eat it before it cools down. She takes a bite first and then swallows the loaf whole, and Keima decides to ask if she's okay. The girl says that no matter how much she eats, she still can't get used to such a taste. The guy decides to try it too and realizes that it tastes very much like curry. Seeing him eating, Laura asks for another loaf, but Keima refuses her. Then she rushes at him, asking him to share at least a piece. He asks to let go of himself and still decides to give her one loaf. The girl says that she loves Keima, who understands that she is losing her vigilance. After that, the guys go to the hotel. The guy says that they decided that Famille, as his student, should live in the same hotel as them. In between assignments, Keima supervised the girl's training. It's been 2 days. Effie turns to the guy and his girlfriend with a request. She shows them the assignment and tells them that Lillian's petitioner is she from the Golden District. Suddenly, Famille jumps out from somewhere, having heard about the Golden District. Keima asks if she knows anything about it, and she reveals that it is the leading trading company in the city selling the best equipment. Keima reads the order and realizes that the task is to transport luggage. Famille suddenly announces that she has to complete her task and leaves. The guys arrive at their destination, and a girl meets them there. She introduces herself as Lily Crockett and says she has heard a lot about them. The guy asks how she knows them, and she replies that her friend told her about a strange adventurer, and she conducted an investigation. Keima thinks that the man told her, but Lilina admits that she did it out of curiosity. Then everyone enters the house. The girl points to the safe and says that since the key is broken, she needs to move it to the warehouse to disassemble it for materials. She says that this thing is quite heavy and assumes that the guys will turn out to be strong G ranks. The guy assumes that it is possible to assess the level of the safe, since after raising the rank, physical abilities also grow, and asks Lilina if he can raise the item. She allows it because she thinks he won't be able to do it. Keima begins to take a nap in the safe, when suddenly the girl screams that she has not yet removed the seal. Despite this, the guy picks up the seal, and she is shocked. He asks what kind of seal it was, but Lilina replies that it doesn't matter because she didn't expect him to pick up the safe so recklessly. She removes the seal and then explains that she put a weight seal on the item so that it would not be stolen. Then the girl says that the safe weighed 5 times its weight and wonders how strong the guy is. Laura says that Keima is cool, but Lilina asks why she is acting so arbitrarily. In the end, the guy moves the safe and completes the task. Lilina is interested in whether the guys still have time, as she wants to talk to them. They agree, and after a while she finds out that the girl and the guy arrived in the city 5 days ago. Then Lilina offers them to sign a special contract, as she sees them as promising adventurers. The guy asks about it, and she tells him that this is not an ordinary contract that is concluded in the guild. Lilina wants the guys to give priority attention to the tasks she gives from now on. The girl explains that with the achievement of C rank, an adventurer receives great prestige, but a significant number of people begin to want to get his attention. She then adds that their company also has its share. Therefore, they try to keep an eye on promising adventurers. Keima concludes that Lilina wanted to accept them while there was such an opportunity, and she confirms his guesses. Suddenly, a girl comes up to them. She puts a bag of money on the table, and Lilina says that they have prepared an advance payment of 60,000 bars for the guys, hoping that this will be enough. The guy thinks about it and suddenly turns to Laura. He asks if it is normal to enter into such contracts with adventurers. She replies that companies usually start hiring adventurers when they reach D rank, but not from the beginning. Then Keima thinks about the fact that with the money he received from that man, he was not only able to pay off all his debts, but also buy a new blanket. Then the guy turns to Lilina and reminds her that he arrived in the city recently and has no merit. He asks if she's in too much of a hurry and admits that the suggestion sounds too good. Lilina exhales and decides to ask if they really suspect her of cheating. Keima explains that he only doubts her intentions. Then the girl starts laughing. She says the guy is pretty smart and takes off his hood. The guy can see her ears. Lilina says that she is a descendant of the Nulfs, a rare race. Using her intuition, she can sense if the creature has a strange power. The girl believes that Keima hides her true strength and skills. Laura suddenly screams because she was able to determine this without revealing the status. Lilina wonders if the guy believes her after that, and he thinks for a second. Thus, the guys accepted her offer and took an advance payment in the amount of 60,000 bars. Then they contacted the guild and paid off their debt of 30,000 bars. In addition, the guys completed 5 tasks and they were promoted to F rank. Walking down the street, Keima talks about futon shops and wants to ask Asha about it. They enter the tavern and she already meets them there. When she hears the question, she tells me that there is one here. However, Asha warns that the prices there are higher than usual. When she finds out that the guys have been promoted to F rank, she offers them a drink. Having seated all her friends at the table, she stands up and announces the celebration. The guy is not used to this and, therefore, is embarrassed. He starts looking at Asha. She tells Keima that he needs to finish his drink, and then he asks if it's okay that they started drinking right after work. The girl replies that she leaves the cleaning to the workers. Asha says the motto of their tavern is, "Cleaning while the adventurers are having fun. It is the duty of the staff to have fun." The guy notices that the girl really likes alcohol. Suddenly, she starts hugging him, while Laura watches with disgust. She is surprised at how Keima Asha is, and is angry at such an open flirtation. Laura continues to drink, thinking that she has the same size. Suddenly, she passes out. Asha concludes that the girl does not know how to drink, but the guy remembers that she has resistance to poisons. Then Asha asks if Female wants to have a drink with them, and she decides to leave under the pretext of helping Laura. The girls leave, and the guy and Asha are left alone. She says he looks like a handsome devil, and he sees that the girl is already drunk. Suddenly, Asha kisses him on the cheek, calls his reaction cute, while the guy is thinking about what he will do this evening. He understands that if he relaxes a lot, then everything will take a different turn because she is the manager. Asha asks him not to worry and promises not to force him to drink more. Suddenly, she takes off some of her clothes and shows herself, saying that she can let him do whatever he wants. Asha continues to undress, and the guy tries to stop her. She assumes that he is not interested in such things. Then the girl offers to go on a date, but Keima says she's going too far. He admits that he just wants to get to know her better. Although then he says that of course he is interested in such things. Keima says that this is his first time, and the girl begins to be touched by this. The girl asks him not to worry, she won't eat it. Then she undresses completely and stands in front of him. The guy thinks about how beautiful she is. Asha puts his hand to her chest and asks if he can feel her heartbeat. Keima realizes that she is just as nervous as he is right now. Then the guy kisses her, and the girl says that it would be unfair if only she would be without clothes. Keima also decides to take off his clothes, and Asha lies down on the floor, asking him to enjoy her body. The girl lets out a moan. Suddenly, the guy opens his eyes and finds himself in his bed. He sits down and realizes that, although he drank out of politeness, he drank too much last night. Then Keima remembers that after things got complicated with Asha, he went to his room and collapsed on the bed. The guy clenches his palm into a fist and begins to rejoice that all this was not a dream. But suddenly, the evil Laura appears near his hand. Keima begins to admire the weather in order to smooth out the situation and asks her not to frown. Laura says she knows that something obscene happened between him and Asha. But the guy replies that even if this is the case, it does not concern her, and she agrees. Then the girl concludes that since the guy likes obscenities, then it becomes her duty to keep an eye on his actions, since her followers should not do something shameful. Keima realizes that he does not need to explain what happened and begins to worry that Laura will continue to sulk at him. He gets out of bed, and he assumes that the girl is lonely now because he forgot about her, after which he hugs her. The guy asks her not to worry and says that he likes her too. The girl calms down, and he decides to end there. He decides to say once again that he really likes Laura, and she begins to hesitate, not knowing what to answer. Then Keima asks to let him touch her. Laura wonders how their conversation came to this, and he reminds her that she was talking about his love of obscenities. However, the guy is not going to force her, and she decides to let him touch her, but a little bit. They sit down on the bed. The guy starts touching her. He notices that her form is quite soft, even though she is tense. Laura starts to get more and more confused and tries to say something. She asks if he's been touching her for too long. Then the girl hits him on the head with her pelvis and moves away from him. She reproaches Keima for starting to massage her obscenely. He apologizes, and Laura admits that it was not bad. Suddenly, she gets embarrassed and decides to leave. The guy thinks that even though he had to stop, but their relationship is getting better. Passing through the corridor, he suddenly remembers that he forgot to thank Female for helping Laura and goes into her room. He sees a girl without outerwear who is in the process of getting dressed. When she sees him, she immediately covers herself. Keima turns away and says that she has a very beautiful body. Female calls his name. She throws him out the door. She claims that no one in their right mind will enter a room without knocking and asks them to at least think a little about their actions. After a while, the three of them go outside. First, they go to the shopping areas to buy a lush bed. Since he has 50,000 leopards, they can splash around in luxury. But then Keima remembers that he can ask Laura for futon for goddess classes, but realizes that it is not profitable. Suddenly, his girlfriend notices an ice cream stand, and they decide to take 2 pieces. The guy asks if Female really doesn't want ice cream, but she asks not to worry about her. She says she will be punished by divine punishment if she indulges in such luxury. Then the guy offers to buy her something as an apology for what happened, but she refuses again. But then the girl tells me that there is still one store that she would like to visit. They go in there, and Laura, finding a collar there, shows it to Keima. In response to the fact that it is a collar, she begins to claim that it is a necklace, when suddenly Female approaches her from behind. The guy asks if she likes what Laura found, but she says no. Then Keima asks to sell him 2 necklaces, and Female begins to resent. Subsequently, she explains that giving a beast man a dog collar is like saying that it now belongs to someone. The guy apologizes for saying he didn't know. Female says it's not his fault and decides to wear a gift. Then the girls ask what they look like, and he replies that the collars fit both of them. Later, the guys go into the store. The guy notices that the condiments there look quite modern, although later he remembers that there are even goddesses in this world. When Keima goes outside, he sees a large crowd of people. Suddenly, a girl turns to the adventurers and asks them to accept her gratitude for having gathered. Then she immediately decides to move on to the details of the quest to conquer the crab. The guy asks what's going on, and Famil is surprised that he doesn't know anything. Then the girls tell him that this is a very dangerous rabid crab. They say that this world is full of rabid crabs with EF rank. These crabs are known for their large migration during the breeding season. The guy remembers hearing something similar in his world. The guy clarifies that crabs migrate directly to the city, and the girls explain that they are unlikely to cause damage to the city, since there are many strong soldiers here. Then Keima wonders if they will be able to cook crab in this world, but in the end he puts the futon as a priority. He comes to the store and asks for the best futon there is. The man offers him a fuwa bed, the pride of the store. The guy thinks that 43,000 bars is expensive, but the seller explains that it is made to order and guarantees magical sensations. The man talks about the reviews and, in the end, allows the guy to experience it for himself. Then Keima suggests that Laura lie down on the bed, and she sighs heavily and sits down. She lies down and covers herself, and suddenly falls into the void. Her body begins to float, as if on clouds. Instantly, the girl's fatigue disappears, and Laura herself begins to experience unprecedented comfort. The guy assumes that she is exaggerating, but then she suggests that he try it himself. He lies down on the bed and realizes that he needs to buy it. Carrying the purchase on his back, Keima remembers about the girls and allows them to sleep with him. Then he explains that it was a joke, when suddenly the guards start shouting that the crab has made its way into the city. At the same moment, a crab runs in front of the guys. A crab runs in front of the guys and jumps up in front of Keima. He notices that the monster is quite fast and pulls out his sword. The guy makes a swing with his sword and cuts one crab, when suddenly female shouts to him that another crab is attacking from behind. Keima notices him and decides to cover himself with a bed. Suddenly, the bed breaks through and falls off his shoulders. The crab falls to the ground, and the guy begins to grieve because of his money spent. Female tries to comfort him, but Keima starts laughing. The girl says that it was an accident and assumes that he will get his money back if he talks to the guild. But the guy replies that everything is fine and decides not to whine about it since he is no longer a child. Keima says that he is not just angry, but very angry, and promises to kill all the crabs. Upon learning that the rest of the crabs are outside the walls of the city, he immediately rushes to the scene of the collision. At this time, the guards were fighting off an army of monsters. A lot of crabs were advancing on the city. Some soldiers defended themselves using a dragon. Others used weapons. The girl stabs the crab with a dagger, and one of the soldiers shouts that the crab should be separated. Suddenly, Keima flies over him. He lands behind everyone and makes them turn around. The guy says that a bloodbath is about to begin and enters the fight. With one blow, he throws up all the nearby crabs. The soldier asks what Keima is up to and shouts that it was a very rash act. Suddenly, a crab attacks the guy from behind again. He notices this and fights back. Keima realizes that dirt complicates movement and decides to use it. He swings his foot and lands a mud kick. When other crabs start advancing, the guy uses fire and pushes them away. At this time, the rest of the soldiers are watching this with admiration and asking who this guy is. They decide that with any number, the battle will be for them and offer to end it. Keima finishes off the next batch and looks for the rest of the crabs. Suddenly, someone's tail knocks him down. A man sitting on a dragon asks him to get out of the way, but the guy tells him to get out so as not to waste time arguing. Seeing such confidence, the man offers to make a bet if he can move him from his place, when suddenly he takes the dragon by the tail. At the same moment, he throws the man with the dragon skyward, saying that he did it with joy. He lands on a tree, and the people begin to worry about him, calling him captain. Keima thinks he has overdone it, when suddenly a large crab comes up to him from behind and inflates a bubble. The guy turns out to be trapped in a big bubble. People start shouting that once he got into a toxic bubble, he's finished, and they run away. The same one just stays looking at them. People notice that he is too calm, when suddenly the bubble bursts because Keima has a resistance to poisons. He notices a large crab behind him and stretches out his hand. The guy uses a flamethrower and demolishes it with fire. Suddenly, 2 more crabs attack him from behind and begin to strangle him. A window opens in front of him with a new acquired ability, Poisonous Compound. The crabs are poisoned and fall to the ground. People are surprised by this and begin to suspect that he is not a person at all. Seeing this, the crabs begin to retreat. And the guy asks if that's really all they're capable of. Then one of the crabs notices his bravery. A second later, Keima feels something huge and aggressive behind his back. People recognize him as a Boston crab and shout at the guy to run. Looking into Kimi's eyes, the crab says that many tried to get his meat, but only got their death. Crossing his claws, he rejoices that he has finally found a worthy opponent. Keima decides to engage him in battle and avenge his bed, and uses fire. However, when the flame disappears, he sees that nothing has happened to the crab at all. Suddenly, the guy gets hit back. He's retreating. Then he climbs up the crab's claws. He strikes from above. But the blow breaks his sword, causing Keima to be very surprised. At the same moment, the crab swings its claw and throws him away. The guy falls to the ground and bounces off it several times. When Keima rises, he exhales. The hero understands that things are bad. Suddenly, he hears someone's voice and sees the silhouette of a bird in the sky. He lands on the nearest hill. It was Genbu. He greets Keima and says that it was not very smart to dive into a swarm of crabs without having a strategy. Genbu asks the guy to listen carefully and tells him that they, the Heavenly Kings, honed their strength through fights. He recalls that Keima ate his brothers and took over their power and experience. The rooster asks him to believe in them. After that, he admits that he would not like to see the guy die before their fight and flies away. Keima doesn't realize that Genbu is here, but decides not to think about it. He throws down his sword and prepares for the fight. The crab tries to stab him, but the guy successfully dodges. Then he decides to use the powers he got in that forest. Keima uses a drilling spiral to deflect all attacks. After that, he uses the powerful jerk he received from Yorubu and activates Reckless Bravery. Then the guy combines it all with his martial arts ability. At this time, the crab does not move from its place, thinking that it will be able to survive this blow. Keima commits a blow that was in retaliation for his fallen bed, even thinning his clothes. The guy makes an extremely strong blow and strikes it directly into the forehead of a large crab. A second later, the monster is thrown far away from a seemingly ordinary uppercut. The crab flies back and eventually falls on its back. Keima wipes himself off and is surprised that it worked. The people begin to admire his victory over the Boston crab. Keima exhales because it's finally over. Suddenly, the guy grabs Anika from behind and, happy for him, says that he is starting to like him. After the adventurers of the guild gathered all the crabs, they called together all the chefs who knew how to cook them. Every adventurer who participated in the battle tasted excellent crab stew. And Keima, as the most distinguished, got the main prize, the magnificent legs of the Boston crab. The girls resort to the guy, and he says that they came just in time. They see a high-quality crab served with vegetables and tofu and say it looks delicious. Laura says that this dish is worthy of a king and praises the guy for cooking. Femel begins to look at the dish with disgust. Keima asks her if she is hungry, and she replies that she is about to lose consciousness from hunger. Then Laura decides to support her and tells her that she needs to take everything from the moment and considers it unacceptable to give up like that. The girl says that her speech was great, and the guy decides to support her. He says that she is right about something and recalls a proverb. He says that the one who does not work does not eat. Then Keima adds, in theory, the crab goes to those who fought in the battle, and he may not share with the girls. Then Laura worships him. She promises to start her life anew, to become a goddess who gives herself completely to the cause, asking to share at least a piece with her. Keima smiles and says he was just joking, after which he gives her a leg of a large crab. Laura admires the taste of the food, and the guy suddenly imagines her without clothes, smeared with stew. At this time, she says that the taste is simply divine. She starts asking Keima to give her more, and he agrees. They continue to have lunch. The hero pays attention to Femel crying with joy. The guy says that on top of everything, the chefs of this city have also prepared many other dishes. He literally feels how such a mild taste spreads in him, like a slow exhalation. because the taste of crab in his mouth is so gradually disappearing. After a while, Keima notices a sad female sitting at the gate. He asks what happened. The girl replies that while he was fighting to the death there, she couldn't find anything where she could help. As a result, female came to the conclusion that she was just a burden. Then she apologizes for such a strange conversation, and Keima decides to look at her status. He finds out that she is level 17 and thinks that her stats do not show that she is weaker than an ordinary magician. The guy decides to just raise her self-esteem when suddenly someone calls out to him. The girl behind whom the two men were standing says that Keima helped them a lot with the crab invasion and, on behalf of the guild, expresses her deepest gratitude. Then she adds that even though he was the most productive in that fight, but, according to the testimony of witnesses, he also wounded the captain of the Wyvern Corpses. Keima starts to apologize, but the girl stops him. She explains that she only wanted to make sure if this was the case, because the captain himself provoked the quarrel. But in any case, after withholding taxes, they decide to reward him for today's suffering. Finally, the girl hopes that there will be no more such incidents while Keima counts the money. He has 100,000 bars and realizes that he can buy himself a bed again. This time, the guy was able to buy a bed without incident, and after lunch with Crab, its level increased significantly from 30-35 to 50-35. Suddenly, he remembers Female's words about the burden and gets up. Laura notices this and, after telling the story, asks if he really wants to make Female her henchman. The guy says that with her divine powers, she will be able to get more spells and abilities. If Laura takes Female, she can earn even more goddess points. The girl thinks about it and says that it is doable. However, Laura informs that in order to learn at least the first level of magic, you will need at least 3,000 believer points, and Keima realizes that he will have to pay 30,000 barca for the sacrifices. It's a lot of money for him, but the guy is willing to pay the amount. Someone starts talking to the guy, when suddenly they hear some noise. Laura says it wasn't her. Keima realizes that something is going on upstairs. Suddenly, a chicken lands on his head, which he then saw in the forest. Suddenly, the chick takes off and turns into a girl who forgot to introduce herself. She introduces herself to Ceres, a goddess who will share her knowledge with him. Keima asks if she is one of Laura's colleagues, and she replies that they studied in the same class. Then Ceres notices that Laura hasn't changed a bit, and she calls her a pest. Then Keima asks if the goddess who came was watching them while they were stuck in the forest, but she asks not to look at her like that. Ceres says that when the guy was called into this world, he was granted magic absorption and claims that the potential of this ability is unlimited. Even more experienced goddesses, she says, are wary when it comes to a guy, and he asks what kind of method she was talking about. Ceres turns to Laura and asks if she has such an ability, which is called ability transfer, and she hesitantly answers that yes. Keima asks about it, and the girl explains that this ability transfers any ability from one owner to another. She then reveals that the ability the guy gets from the monster he ate can be transferred to Female or anyone else. Therefore, it seems to Ceres that it is better to use this transfer than to wait for the girl to pay back the invested money, and the guy agrees with her. Keima thinks she is right and wonders if there is anything to be done with these abilities other than transference. Then he agrees and spends 1,000 believer points and learns the transfer ability. Ceres decides it's time for her and is about to leave. She remembers how she looked after Laura when she was in the woods and advises her to try harder. Then Ceres starts touching her cheeks. She says that the girl should call her ma'am, and she agrees with her in a different way. Keima notices that this goddess does not give mercy. She's finally leaving. The next day, they go to the guild. The guy finds out that he is being promoted to D rank. Effie says it's a special case. She explains that the rank system is designed to ensure that adventurers take tasks equal to their abilities in order to avoid the greatest number of casualties. Then the girl admits that because of Keima, chaos began to happen. But anyway, she raises it. They shake hands, and the guy expresses gratitude. Suddenly, Effie suggests that Laura also increase her rank, but he warns that they can be punished with a large fine. Then Keima refuses, and Laura starts to get a little angry. As a result, I raise them both to D rank, and Effie gives them a task from Lilina. In the assignment, the girl apologizes for the urgency and asks them to help her companion. Keima sees that this is an F rank assignment and offers Female to help them. She is embarrassed, but eventually agrees. They come to the place of the assignment. They are greeted by a blacksmith girl named Lalana. Female recognizes her as the famous princess. There are rumors about her. She says that the princess carried a giant axe, and many adventurers believed that she had reached the top of her skill. Upon hearing this, Lalana is embarrassed and says that it was a long time ago. She then explains that she needs to mine the ore and points to it. She hands Keima an axe and confesses that she wants to see his strength. The guy refuses. He points to Femiel, saying that she will take care of this request. Perplexed enough, Lalana clutched the hilt of her weapon and asked in surprise what the words meant that this young lady would work instead of Keima. She lowered the axe to the ground, after which she noticed that Femiel's knees were even shaking. She looked at Keima and asked if the guy was sure that everything would be all right. Femiel grabbed Keima's hand, after which she loudly shouted to the guy that she couldn't. She stated that she simply would not be able to swing this axe because she could not even lift it. Without listening to her for a very long time, he pulled Femiel by her other hand, after which he deftly lifted her up like a sack of potatoes and threw her behind his back while the frightened girl screamed. He turned to the lane out of the corner of his eye, after which he politely apologized and asked if they could leave for a couple of minutes. Equally surprised, Lalana agreed, while Femiel continued to scream in fright. Femiel blushed slightly until Keima took her somewhere. After some time spent on the road, the guy gently lowered her to the ground. Femiel immediately shrank and tensed. Keima raised his head and tried to say something. He blushed a little and scratched his face awkwardly, not knowing how best to explain everything to him. He also thought about the possibility of telling her everything directly, but decided that this was not the best idea. After that, Femiel still hesitantly asked if he wanted to say that Laura is a goddess and Keima is so strong only because he received power from her. In his mind, right after that, she would have turned away from him and asked if he had hit his head. He wouldn't be too surprised if she reacted that way. He sighed and walked over to her while Femiel was at a loss. Suddenly, he put his hand on the wall behind the girl, which was why she was pinned down. Femiel screamed. She trembled and asked what he was trying to do. Keima interrupted her and asked the girl to listen carefully to him. He put his hand on her face, which made her blush a lot. He turned to Femiel, after which he seriously said that he sees really great potential in her career as an adventurer. He moved away, and Femiel was left in a kind of stupor because she did not expect that the conversation would turn out this way. Keima said he couldn't go into details, but he could awaken some of the hidden power that lurks in her. He squeezed her hand and said that if she wanted, he could help. Femiel was confused, after which she exclaimed that she did not understand anything, but if it could give her strength, then she would try. Looking at how the girl was trembling all over, Keima thought that for some reason such an honest reaction made him feel quite guilty. After a while, he brought Laura and whispered to her the question that if he gave her the ability he had received as her henchman, would they have any problems? Laura quickly said that everything would be fine. Keima flipped through the screen and thought that he would choose the first level axe art from Laura's catalog. He called Femiel closer, then put his hand on her head and used her abilities. Femiel walked away and asked if that was all that needed to be done. Keima agreed and told her to take this axe now. Under everyone's gazes, Femiel took the handle of the axe. Then she got up rather sloppily. Her hands were shaking, but she swung with all her might and hit the tree with the axe. Putting all her strength into it, she hit the tree over and over again. She applied a sufficient amount of effort, thanks to which the object that was under her weapon split in two. Femiel swung hard after that, which caused the axe to be behind her back. He outweighed her, and because of this, she began to fall backwards right behind the weapon. Lalana came up and noticed with a smile that she was wielding this axe, and Femiel surprised her quite a lot. Lalana praised the girl for her good work. Keima approached Femiel and asked her how it was. The girl turned around and awkwardly said that the very moment she picked up this axe, the knowledge of how to hold it and wield it seemed to flow through her head. Suddenly, she was very surprised, and she looked at the handle of her axe. She asked if this was really the hidden power that Kita had mentioned earlier. The guy went on and said that, in that case, he would leave the rest to her. The girl agreed with a big smile. After some time, Keita and Lalana came back to Femiel. The girl caught her breath wearily and fell to the floor, leaning on the axe. She was very tired. Femiel turned around and apologized, saying that it seemed like once was her limit. Looking at this, Keima thought that perhaps her weapon skills were more difficult because of her low strength index. He picked Femiel up from the ground, after which he praised her. He said that he now understood how everything works, after which he apologized for having to be part of his little experiment. Female immediately began to deny it. She smiled broadly and said that she was really very happy that she could help in some way. After that, she laughed sweetly. Lalana looked at Keima and sighed, after which she declared that now it was his turn. She handed him the axe and said that she had heard enough about its power from Lalina. She said that was why she wanted him to show her strength. Suddenly, Keima refused the weapon and said that he did not need an axe at all. He raised his hands, then asked if Lalana could bring the strongest sword she had here, as well as all the ore she hoped to extract. After a while, all the necessary ore was in one place. Keima carefully shifted it onto a log, which caused a small mountain to form there. After that, he threw one of the stones into the air. Following one, he began to toss up all the ore until there was not a single piece left on the log. When all the ore was in the air, Keima quickly stretched out his hand to the hilt of the sword. With a quick and deft wave of his hand, he made 2 quick swings with his sword. At the same moment, all the ore that was in the air cracked loudly. Keima turned around and lowered his sword. It was all so fast that the ore continued to float in the air. In the next moment, all the stone that covered the ore fell apart, and everything Lalana needed was outside. Keima carefully returned his sword to its scabbard. He sank to the ground, and after that, the ore quickly fell down to the ground and all the work was finished. Lalana stared at it in a stupor, then screamed loudly, trying to figure out what she had just seen. Keima turned around and asked if something was wrong. At this time, Lalana was diligently peering at the ore with a noticeable disbelief on her face. She looked at the perfectly pure ore and said that the whole problem lies precisely in the fact that it is not there. She took a quiet breath, then laughed out loud. She patted Keima on the shoulder and said that she could not have imagined that he would be so strong in the world in which they live. She took his arm, then snuggled up to him. She said she already liked him and asked what he thought about getting a full-time job at her workshop. Keima raised his hand and said he refused. Lalana called out to him in a drawl and asked him not to jump to conclusions too much. After that, Lalana signed her name and said that the task was completed with this. After she signed the paper, Keima suddenly turned to her. He said that he would really like Female to practice fighting. Upon hearing this, Female herself was quite surprised. Keima asked if Lalana Case knew of any location with weak monsters so they could practice. Upon hearing this request, Lalana thought about it. She put her hand on her chin and closed her eyes, asking the guys to give her some time to think. After that, she asked if they would prove to her, in that case, a favor. Keima asked what she wanted. The girl said that if you leave the city to the east, passing by the forest, there will be a cave at the very base of the Bavarel volcano. In the cave itself, there is a material called burnt pebbles, and Lalana wants them to get this material for her. She smiled and said that there are E-rank monsters there, but she thinks that such guys certainly won't have any problems with them. Keima agreed and said that everything would be fine. The girl said that it was great, and she would go to the guild to place a request, especially for them. Suddenly, she hesitated. She turned around and asked what the guy's exact name was. Kasakai Keima gave his full name in response to this question. Lalana repeated his name and smiled broadly, saying that she would try to remember him. The very next day, the guys went to the guild in order to accept a request from Lalana. With a new sword that Keima received from Laura, they set off towards the very cave of the Bavarel volcano. Femel turned around and asked if he had talked about ice magic earlier. Keima said that he had heard that there are many fire monsters living near the volcano. This was the reason why Keima thought it would be nice for her to learn something before their arrival. He also said that in order to get used to something new, he thinks it's worth giving himself up to it completely. Female exclaimed that she would be fine. She said that in order to stand on Keima's side, she had already prepared herself for everything. Keima waved his hand and asked the girl to tilt her head. Female obediently did what he asked. Keima placed his hand on top of Female's head, then used transference magic. Suddenly, everything around the girl shone. She herself was fascinated by this power. After that, Keima took his hand away and told Female to try to use it. The girl agreed. She lowered her staff and closed her eyes to focus better. The next moment, the opposite end of Female's staff shone brightly. She pulled it out, then ordered the ice stakes of tranquility to destroy all her enemies. After these words, the girl's staff shone even brighter, after which quite large ice blocks with sharp ends flew in different directions from her. She summoned an ice needle. A spell of incredible power began to demolish many trees that were very close. Having reached the last tree, the ice stakes crashed into it but did not completely break it. Amazed by what had happened, Female silently stared at her staff, while Laura and Keima looked at how far the girl's attack had gone. After that, Female blushed deeply with shame and clutched her staff. She said she didn't know why, but when she picked up her staff, these words came to her mind, and she did it. Laura, who finally recovered from the shock, exclaimed to Female that it was just amazing. She said that Female might not know, but magical abilities are very complex, and usually you can't just learn them in the first 5 minutes. Keima patted the girl on the shoulder and said that she had done well. Female raised her hand and began to deny it. Shy, but visibly pleased, Female said that it was all thanks to Keima, because it was his power that helped her. The guy laughed and said that she shouldn't be so modest at all. He turned around and asked the others if they were ready to go to the cave. After a while, they came to the entrance of the cave. Keima came forward and looked around, after which he said that it was surprisingly very bright in this place. Laura approached him and assumed that the fiery mana inside all these stones illuminated everything in red shades. At this time, several bats noticed the guys who disturbed their rest. They flapped their wings, then took off. The wings of these little creatures were ablaze with bright fire. Female was surprised and said that these were probably fire bats, F-rank monsters. Keima asked if someone had finally decided to show themselves to them. The guy turned easily and called Female. The girl awkwardly exclaimed that she would try to do her best. She stepped forward and stretched out her staff, after which she squeezed her eyes tightly while a bright light appeared around her weapon. She exclaimed the name of her ice needle spell, after which the bats were hit one by one. Every single one of them was injured and killed by Female's magic. Keima and Laura were really surprised by what they saw. At the same moment, all the enemies fell to the ground dead. Laura loudly admired, after which she noted that Female could already use different spells without pronouncing them. Female was a little surprised. She said absolutely calmly that she was doing it more or less, because she just imagined this feeling when she cast the spell last time. She asked what was wrong with it, in response to which the guys remained silent. Keima looked at her and thought that everything was right, and she still knew about it, but she did not have much more potential than she praised herself. However, there was something that was also on his mind. He turned around and said that they did not yet know what might be ahead of them, so Female should not lag behind the guys. The girl quickly agreed. The guy warned the goddess, saying that it was better for her not to get into a fight either. The girl was a little surprised by these words. Laura said that there was no problem because, after all, she was wearing her goddess clothes. Keima asked what she meant. Laura proudly exclaimed that her clothes were those of a goddess, which, in other words, were made especially for God. It doesn't matter how many times they try to set her on fire or conjure her, because she'll be fine. Keima turned away disinterestedly and said he understood. At that moment, he remembered the recent situation and understood why she hadn't been hurt that time. After the guys went further into the cave, enemy wolves appeared on their way. They surrounded them, and then Keima called Female again. The girl quickly agreed, without even waiting for the guy's order. She repeated the spell over and over again, which made it quite easy to defeat all the enemies. Keima noticed that Female seemed to be in a pretty good mood. With a big smile on her face, the girl agreed and said that she had recently been expelled from the School of Magic, and now she is very happy that she can help someone. She turned around and said that right now she feels like she's capable of anything. Keima laughed and said that the most important thing was that she didn't do anything reckless. The girl agreed. At this time, it was quite quiet in the depths of this cave. A small white mouse was running through the cave when suddenly a human hand burst out of the ground right in front of it. The pig-faced monster burst out of the ground and screamed, trying to get out of the ground completely. It was a rather dangerous opponent who was climbing out of the depths of the cave. The monster barely made any sounds, simultaneously pulling the lower part of its body out of the ground. He growled, noting that this meant that someone had come after all. He said that it was someone who possessed the ability of absorption magic, just like himself. He caught fire with magical energy and said that he would eat the flesh of this creature in order to become even stronger. At this time, the small bats that were at the top fluttered up and flew in an unknown direction. Meanwhile, Female was fighting monsters with all her might. She used the ice needle over and over again, and she was quite tired because of it. One of the monsters got close to her and tried to attack, but Female had no way to dodge this time. She shrank and sank to the ground when suddenly Keima jumped out, who with one swing of his sword killed the monster that was trying to harm. He shouted to Female that she could leave these monsters to him. The girl ran to the side and said that she understood, after which she thanked Keima. At that time, rivers of unknown liquid were flowing through the cave. Laura used forceps to collect the hot material into a bag. She said that there was not much left, smiled and called Keima, after which she said that it looked like it would be enough to complete their task. The guy agreed. He stood up and said with a smile that they were done, so now we can go and take a break. He was holding a map in his hands. Laura and Female quickly agreed to his proposal. The guys came to the recreation area, which was located near the Bavarel volcano. This recreation area is well protected by a square barrier that protects sand from evil forces. Keima carried the monsters, thinking that it somehow reminded him of the save points in the games. He laid out the bodies and thought that it was time for a minute of cooking. With his sword, he carefully butchered the meat of the monsters and cut them into equal parts, after which he laid them on the surface over the fire so that the meat was fried. He covered his nose, thinking that this meat stinks very much and the smell is very pungent. After that, he laid out the finished meat and added spices. Laura said with a smile that the terrible stench had turned into an alluring fragrance. Keima was very surprised and said that the dish tasted really delicious. Laura took a small piece of meat and tasted it, after which she smiled broadly and said that it was very tasty. She took another piece on her fork, after which she said that the skin was very soft, which reminded her of chicken, and everything together tasted even better. Keima ate in silence and thought that he himself did not know the reason, but the taste of the wolf meat was really amazing. At that moment, the guys turned their attention to Female, who carefully took a piece of meat and quickly put it in her mouth, after which her face was greatly distorted. She quickly grabbed the water and drank it greedily, after which she took a deep breath. Keima asked the girl in surprise what was wrong. Female came to her senses and immediately apologized, saying that she was very hungry after the last fight. The guys didn't say anything. Keima suggested that Female is still growing. He asked the girl if she had any free time, after which he stretched out his hand and opened the girl's status. After that, he said that Female had raised 8 levels in one day. Female didn't quite understand this. Laura said that in this world, such a growth rate is nothing short of a miracle. Female asked in disbelief what they were talking about and what kind of levels they were. Keima said it wasn't that important and she should just ignore their conversation. Keima stood up and said that they should probably go to the surface and report their progress to Lalana. Female stood up and agreed with him. Suddenly, the guys felt a sharp and strong jolt. Keima asked in surprise what it was. In the next moment, one of the walls of the cave, which was next to them, was breached by the monster's large hand. The monster that had recently risen from the ground of the cave laughed nastily and happily said that he had caught these people. Laura was very surprised and said that it looked like some kind of joke. She stated that this monster is a fire elemental. Keima asked in disbelief what it was. The girl said that this terrible monster appears only once in 30 years and brings trouble to everyone she meets on her way. After that, she said that it had only been a couple of years since his last appearance in this area. Female shouted that they should run because, no matter how strong Keima was, they would not be able to defeat this monster without enough people. She happily said that the good thing is that this barrier will protect them, and therefore they have time to retreat and call for help. The monster wasn't going to wait for them. With all his might, he swung and hit directly at the barrier that was being created for the recreation area. The guys were surprised when they noticed such an action. The monster's blow was so strong that it easily destroyed the barrier and exploded inside. The guys were amazed that the barrier broke so easily. In the next instant, many different attacks flew towards them. Female and Laura were scared and screamed, clinging lower to the ground. Keima came forward with a sword, after which he shouted to them that he would try to detain the monster, and when they saw an opportunity, they should run. When they heard this, they were surprised and a little confused. Laura screamed loudly, refusing it, saying that they just couldn't leave the guy there so easily. Keima turned around and said that he was not going to sacrifice himself, and she should know about it. He said he just couldn't fight with all his strength while they were both bothering him from behind. Laura shouted loudly at him not to say any stupid things. She stated that with her outfit, no fire attacks would damage her. The next moment, a fast magic arrow charged with fiery power swept past Laura. Before she knew it, the shreds of her clothes began to fly around her. Laura touched her severed hair, trying to figure out what it was. However, Female quickly caught her by the hand and called for her, saying that they should run as soon as possible. Laura turned around and asked Female to wait, asking how they could leave without Keima. Suddenly, the monster looked at them and screamed loudly that they would not be able to escape from it. With a malicious smile, he climbed out of the cave opening and growled loudly. The girls who tried to escape were surprised. Laura stumbled and fell to the ground with a crash, Female not letting go of her hand, trying to help. At this time, a huge boulder was flying straight towards them, and Laura could only watch helplessly. Female quickly pulled the girl by the hand and exclaimed her name. Her strength was enough for Laura to jump up from the ground and manage to dodge a direct attack. Laura looked back and was startled to notice that the cave had begun to collapse. Female turned around and said that this place was too dangerous, and therefore they needed to hurry up in order to get out of there. At that very moment, a huge boulder rolled right in front of their faces, which they did not expect to see. Female turned around and then confidently gave Laura instructions that she needed to jump. After that, they continued to hold hands and jumped high, so they were able to avoid a direct collision. The girls fell to the ground holding hands. Female turned around and asked Laura if she was okay. The girl who fell right on her face could only mumble something, showing that she was still alive. Female's gaze fell on something she hadn't expected at all. She noticed that because of the huge cobblestone, the entrance to the recreation area was blocked. She turned to Laura, who struggled to her feet, and said she couldn't believe Keima was still on the other side of the cobblestone. Laura looked around and said she hoped Keima was okay. Female just didn't say anything. She helped Laura get up, holding out her hand, and then said that she knew they were both worried, but they needed to hurry to find help. Suddenly, they heard a certain voice gloatingly saying that he had found them. Female turned around in surprise. The monster was right above them. In an instant, he jumped down, causing the ground to shake, and the girls were scared. A rather strong aura gathered around the monster, and he himself made a rather frightening sound. Female turned very pale and said that this simply could not be. There is a second fire elemental right in front of them. The monster closed its eyes, after which he screamed loudly. Laura and Female immediately covered their ears with their hands because it was too loud. Female thought that she had a pretty small chance, but she had to do what she thought at that moment. She held her staff out in front of her, then screamed loudly, using the ice needle against the fire elemental. Noticing this attack, the monster quickly covered itself with fire. Upon seeing this, Female panicked a little, but quickly came to the conclusion that she needed to use more energy. She waved her staff again to use the ice needle. The monster folded his arms into a cross so that he easily surrounded himself with fire magic, which, in turn, protected him well from Female's attack. Noticing this, the girl realized that nothing was coming out. The monster stood up and sighed. After that, he quickly rushed forward and swung his arm hard in order to attack the girls from close range. Female froze in place from shock. Laura screamed at the girl to run away from there as soon as possible, but Female only turned pale, unable to move from her place. Right after that, the monster hit her in the face very painfully. Female flew back. She fell to the ground with a loud scream while the monster was already reaching for her. Laura panicked and called out to the girl who was lying motionless on the ground. The monster lifted Female by the edge of her clothes. He lifted her off the ground. Female grunted painfully. She did not open her eyes, thinking that she was in a very dangerous situation because she already had very little strength to fight. She turned around and told Laura to run while she still had the chance. At that moment, a small stone hit the chest of the monster, after which it bounced back. Evil Laura screamed at the monster to get his hands off Female. She swung a few more stones, which she held in both hands. She grinned and said that if she didn't, then with her godly powers she would show him, and he would regret it very much. At that moment, the monster slightly bent his index finger and hit Laura on the forehead, after which she flew back. She fell down and put her hand to her head and gasped in pain. Female called the girl's name in fright. The monster growled something, looking at Female, who was hanging in his arms. He pulled her closer to his face and said that he could not have imagined that he would have to waste his precious time on such a small thing as her. However, he said that it would probably be useful to him as a small snack. Female was silent until tears began to form in her eyes. She thought about how she knew from the very beginning that someone like her would never be able to defeat such a powerful monster. Suddenly, she heard a voice telling her not to give up. Female was very surprised, while the monster shuddered slightly. Laura, equally surprised, asked if it was really Keima's voice. The monster turned around and asked if it could be that he just imagined it. Female came up with something at that moment because her look had changed noticeably. Female closed her eyes and said that it was true that she was weak and sometimes even useless. The monster looked at her and asked if she was going to beg for mercy. Immediately after these words, he declared that she was worthless. The girl gripped her staff tightly. She said that at a time when there is someone who is willing to sacrifice themselves in order to protect someone like her, she will fight. She said that this man was very strong and kind, and he was also the first person she really fell in love with. She cried and said that until he came to save her, she would never let herself die. Laura was very impressed by Female's words. Suddenly, the monster grabbed the girl by the throat and asked if she had said everything she wanted. Female only tensed up more. She understood that her magic attacks were no longer working, and therefore she urgently needed to come up with something she could do in this situation. Suddenly, an idea came to her. She thought that if she concentrated all her magic in one place, she might be able to do it. The monster laughed and said that she seemed to be able to do nothing but talk. After that, he asked if it could be that she started raving out of fear. Female gripped her staff, and its end caught fire. The girl turned to the peak of the 1,000-year-old ice and ordered them to destroy her enemy. She screamed loudly and used the ice needle again. The monster was startled and dropped it from his hands with a scream. Female flew down, and seeing this, Laura immediately ran and caught the girl. She anxiously asked her friend if she was okay. Female apologized and said that she didn't seem to have the strength left to walk at all. Laura only silently praised her in her head, thinking that Female could leave the rest to her. At this time, Keima jumped high. He swung his sword so that he was behind his enemy's back. The monster's body was dissected, and on his last breath, he said that it was simply unimaginable. The monster quickly caught fire, and Keima sheathed his sword. Female and Laura got out and anxiously asked the guy if he was okay. The guy confirmed it. Female asked how this was possible. Keima said it was a little hard to believe. With the first elemental, he wanted to suppress its fire with his ability, but before he could figure anything out, he died. And the boulder that blocked their passage, Keima just smashed with his sword. Female stared at him in silence, while Laura declared that she did not know what to say, but she noted that it was very similar to Keima. Female fell to the floor and asked if this meant that the voice she heard was not a hallucination. Keima said that this was not the case, and he really talked to her. Female fell even lower and blushed, realizing that he had heard her confession. She got down on the ground and asked someone to kill her. Keima felt awkward. Laura told the guy that he was terrible. She knew that he had saved them, but she also said that he could have done it sooner rather than stand by and watch it. Laura really thought she was going to die this time for sure. Keima said he screwed up. He thought that Female had done the incredible anyway. He turned around and noticed that she still hadn't woken up. He was firmly convinced that she would be able to become very strong in the near future. Female woke up and asked what was wrong. Keima approached her and asked if she would like to start doing more tasks with them as an official member of their team. Upon hearing this, Female was greatly surprised and blushed. Immediately after that, the girl smiled broadly and agreed, after which she said that she would go with them if they took good care of her. The guys got to the exit, and Keima said with a smile that they had finally come out. He turned around and was surprised to see several people running straight towards them. Lalana was standing in front of them. The girl was out of breath, but she was amazed to notice that they had coped. She said that everyone was probably tired, but it was important for her to know if they had seen a dangerous monster nearby. Keima asked Lalana again, after which he decided to tell her what had happened. He calmly said that they were attacked by 2 fire elementals. Upon hearing this, Lalana screamed in amazement, asking him again. She turned around and told the guards that it was serious. The guy agreed and said that they should return to the city for help as soon as possible. Keima stopped them and told them not to worry, because he had already killed them. Lalana asked, startled, what he had said. The guy awkwardly lowered his gaze, after which he took out 2 objects and said that they had a pair of claws left if they needed proof. Lalana said that such a subject should not be confused with anything else, and even if his story is difficult to accept, however, it does not look like he is lying. The guys decided to ask why she came. The girl came to her senses and said that 3 days ago she was informed that 2 adventurers had disappeared in the volcano area. Female was surprised and asked if it was true. Lalana said she was worried about them and therefore hurried to get there as soon as possible. Female sadly said that the fire elementals were already there. Keima remained silent. Lalana said that, in addition to these cases, quite a few adventurers were missing. She thought she had no choice but to save them all. However, to her surprise, the fire elementals had already been punished. Lalana said she would give them a bonus part of the reward, in addition to the main one. Upon hearing this, Keima was delighted and thanked the girl, And so, after receiving the reward for the elementals, the reputation of the guys grew again. Keima walked down the hallway of the house, yawning widely. He thought that Famiel's self-confidence had grown along with it. He was thinking that he could rely on her for now if he needed a little help. He knocked on the door and asked Famiel if she was asleep. When he opened the door, he saw Famiel lying on the bed and whimpering that her body was in pain. Laura said that it was a simple climb after all the levels received. She said that when the indicators improve and she is not used to them yet, they make her whole body ache. She assumed that Famiel would get better in a couple of days. The girl just kept whimpering. She apologized and said that even though they had things to do, they still cared about her. The guys said that you shouldn't worry, it's not difficult. Keima patted her on the head and said that she was his student, and at such a time, it was the least he could do for her. Famiel was very touched by his words. Laura gathered up her short hair again and asked Keima if they would go to the guild today. The guy agreed. Suddenly, he approached and said that, looking closer, you can say that her new image is very good, it suits her. Laura was confused. She blushed and asked if the guy liked short hair better. He quickly agreed, which embarrassed Laura even more. It's cute because it reminds him of a dog, Laura exclaimed, asking if she should take it as a compliment. 3 whole days later, Famiel stretched out on the bed, then clasped her hands. Her gaze was full of confidence. She had completely changed her clothes. Keima met her in the hallway and asked if she was feeling better. She confirmed it. The girl waved at him and said that she would go to look at the tasks in the guild. Keima asked if she could handle it. She confidently agreed. A whole month later, Famiel burst into the room where Laura was giving Keima a massage. She called him to look at it. She exclaimed joyfully that she had been promoted to E rank. Keima got dressed and then praised her. Famiel thanked him, then blushed slightly and said that she would really like him to be the first to see her progress. Keima patted her on the head and said that she was a very good girl. Famiel laughed. The guy noticed that her level had increased by 7, and, as usual, she was developing very quickly. Keima exclaimed that she should continue to work in the same spirit, to which Famiel briskly agreed. A couple of days later, Famiel came to the guy again and said that she had managed to complete another E-rank task on her own. She took out a large bag of money and told him to see how much she had earned. Famiel said that there are 30,000 bars in total. Keima said in amazement that it was incredible. He picked up a small bag and said that his wallet was also quite full after the last task. He asked them what they thought of a good dinner. Famiel jumped up and held out her money to him. She asked Keima to take them as a thank you for the training. The guy awkwardly said that these were her living expenses, but Famiel exclaimed that she would cope. She stated that she was already used to difficulties and therefore could quite survive by eating only grass. Keima patted her on the head and told her she should stop. Famiel was confused. The guy said that her comfort was more important than paying for his service, and therefore he could not accept this money. Famiel was confused. She blushed and said she really wanted to thank Keima. She exclaimed that she wanted to make him happy somehow. The guy thought about it. He thanked the girl for her concern, but he was still uncomfortable. He turned to Laura, who was staring at the guy. Laura told Keima that it was very gentlemanly of him, because when it came to her, the guy didn't even mind touching her breasts. The guy awkwardly remained silent, and the girl put her hand on his shoulder and called his name. Laura told him that Famiel was trying very hard, so he needed to rely on her more. No matter what, the guy should give her the opportunity to thank him. She said she would turn a blind eye to it, even if it was something obscene. The guy replied that he was surprised. The girl continued to occasionally give out useless thoughts, to which she exclaimed that it was rude. Laura added the words that if Keima makes Famiel cry, she will not forgive him. She turned around and said goodbye. The guy lowered his head and closed his eyes because he was thinking what to do now. Keima turned to Famiel and said that he had one thing he would like to ask her about. The girl exclaimed in agreement. She asked to tell her about it. After that, the girl changed into another suit. She announced that she had finished changing clothes. These things were borrowed from Asha. Famiel was standing in front of a guy who said he thought so. It looked just fine on the girl. The girl asked why he chose this particular outfit. It seemed to her that the skirt was a little too short. Keima replied that in his town, when women show their hospitality, they dress like that. This is their custom. The girl replied that she understood. The guy told her that from now on she should call him teacher, not by his first name. Famiel was embarrassed, but she replied that for some reason she would do everything she could, calling the guy a teacher. Keima remained silent on these words, and thought that for some reason he felt a slight sense of shame. After some time, Famiel began to clean up. The guy thought that it was cool, of course. The girl turned to the guy with the words that she had finished cleaning. Keima replied that it was great, and then whispered something in her ear. Female awkwardly agreed with the words that if that's what her teacher wants. She lowered her head and sat down. She looked at the guy and patted her legs, inviting her teacher. She clarified that this is in every sense. After that, the guy quickly lay down on the legs of the girl, who was surprised. Keima thought that this feeling was simply the best. The girl looked at the guy and called out to him. The guy said the words about her giving him a little rest. Female sighed. And then, with a smile, she replied that the guy would leave all his whims to her for today. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door asking if Kosakai Keima was there, which surprised Female. The guest entered the room. The girl introduced herself as Rorona Highlord, Lilina's younger sister. She would like to ask for their help with one task. After these words, Rona froze. She saw a guy with a girl on the floor and turned around in shock. She said she was sorry if she had interrupted them. She said she wasn't here, so they can continue. Female exclaimed that everything is not what it looks like. After this incident, they went to the guild and checked out the assignment, and then went home to Lilina. The girl greeted the guests with words that they had not seen each other for a long time. Lilina said that she hears more and more about the exploits of the guy. She knew her instincts were right when she chose a guy. Keima replied that the girl was flattering him. 2 men were loading boxes into the cart at that time. Lilina got down to business. She explained that the task of the guys is to escort and guard this wagon. The girl said that the destination is a workshop in the mountains to the southwest of the place where they are located. It was a D-rank quest. The whole trip will take about a month. Keima replied that he understood. It was a commercial support assignment. He asked what exactly they were protecting. Lilina put her hand on the guy's shoulder. Calling him a boy, she asked if he didn't think it was better not to know about some things in the world. It shocked the guy. After that, the girl laughed and replied that it was just ordinary ore. She told the guy not to worry because they don't distribute illegal substances and similar things. Lilina told the guy that the reward is 20,000 bars per day until they complete the task. She asked about the fact that it's not bad. Keima replied that if the delivery takes about half a month, then it turns out 300,000 bars. Even for a D-rank assignment, it was quite a lot of money. The girl asked the guy that maybe he then wants to work for free. Keima awkwardly refused. Lilina said the words that she wanted to hear. The guy thought it was a pretty good assignment. Keima replied to Lilina that they would look into the matter. The girl thanked him for his help. After that, she added that besides them, Lilina herself and the carrier would also go, and also her younger sister will keep them company. Famil asked that it couldn't be the same steel-blooded black swordswoman of Roron, to which Lilina replied with surprise, since the girl had heard about her. Lilina said that among all her employees, she is one of the best swordsmen. If something happens, they can feel free to ask her for help. Female approached Rorona with the words that she was pleased to meet, holding out her hand. Rorona said the words that she would be brief. She said she would handle any minor skirmishes along the way. Femel was stunned. Rorona added words about what she would like, so to speak. She asked if the guys knew that there were some rumors that recently, from nowhere, varieties of mutated monsters began to appear, and cases of their attacks on adventurers are known. Keima confirmed Rorona's words, saying that back then, at the volcano, they were also attacked by strange monsters. Rorona reported that they had sent scouts to investigate the situation, but they had not been able to find out what kind of mutants were hiding near the main road. The girl said that this time they would go the safest way, but there was still a chance that something would go wrong. For this reason, they will need to take precautions while going into the mountains. Rorona said that even so, she didn't think they would need guards. After all, her older sister is so careful. Lilina replied to Rorona with a smile that it was because her older sister was taking care of her safety. Rorona turned to Keima and said that her sister had high hopes for him, so he should try not to disappoint her. The guy agreed. He said that there was no need to worry, because he was sure that he would soon be able to show the girl what he was worth. Rorona replied with a grin that at least he seemed to have something resembling a character. Lilina asked if they could leave. After that, the cart set off on the road. Laura and Female were playing cards. Laura said that sooner or later they would get tired of it anyway, because there was nothing else to do there. Female replied that she didn't mind, she liked the idea of a leisurely trip. Rorona rode in silence. She was thinking about Keima because her sister knows what he's capable of. She thought it was time for her to evaluate the guy. A small wagon was driving along the road through the forest. The cart was being watched by a suspicious-looking young man who was looking thoughtfully through a monocle. He said with a smile that these were the first guests in such a long time. He decided that they needed to provide a cordial welcome. Keima, Laura, Female, and Rorona were sitting in the carriage. Suddenly, Rorona noticed something. The girl turned to the man with the words that he should slow down the horses. The carrier looked at her blankly and agreed. The cart stopped, and Rorona quickly jumped out. She said that there was no need to hide because she knew that there was someone in his place. She told me to show myself. At the same moment, guys who were armed began to appear from all sides. They were watching the wagon closely. Lilina and the carrier were shocked because the cart was surrounded on all sides by men. The big man laughingly apologized to Rorona, calling her a lady. He said they seemed to be in a desperate situation right now. The man went on to say that if the guys could give them some of their food and money, it would be just fine. The other men laughed at these words, and Rorona simply remained silent at the robbers' demand. The girl apologized to them, saying that they were in a hurry, so she didn't have time to do useless things with people like them. Rorona told the men to get lost, and she'll even be nice to them, so she'll give the men a head start. The robbers laughed at these words. One of the men put his hand on the girl's shoulder and said that she was quite stubborn. He said there was no need to complicate things so much. The man came closer to the girl and said that she looked prettier up close. He called Rorona a cutie, to which she exclaimed that he take his hands off her. The robber replied that she should not worry about her pretty face, because they are all gentlemen here. He said they would definitely try to take better care of her. Suddenly, the girl abruptly pushed the man away from her, which surprised everyone very much. She quickly grabbed her sword and swung it quickly. Rorona deftly struck at the man, piercing his shoulder. The man screamed from such an injury. He knelt down on one knee, holding onto his shoulder, and shouted loudly. The other guys called out to their boss in shock. The leader of the robbers exclaimed the words that the girl would die. The man swung his weapon with a loud shout. The girl was able to deftly dodge the attack by jumping back. Rorona pushed herself off the ground with her hand. Jumping up high, she quickly began to attack the man. The girl pierced the man with her sword, who, out of surprise, did not have time to react to the attack. The boss of the robbers fell to the ground, so the men began to call out loudly to him. The girl looked at them and asked if they still wanted to fight. One of the men swore and said that she had taken advantage of their hospitality. He put his hand to his mouth and whistled loudly. At this sound, even more robbers came running. The man laughed and said that the girl would regret making them angry. Rorona looked around and said that there were a whole bunch of bandits. At that moment, Keima ran out of the cart and asked Rorona to help her. The girl thought for a while and, sheathing her sword, agreed. She headed towards the guy and then completely walked past him, which surprised him. And the girl pushed him in the back. The robbers watched in amazement. The guy was pushed right into the epicenter of events. Keima looked at the girl, who just chuckled. Rorona looked at the guy and said that she left the rest to him. She said that you need to work hard for such a salary. Keima looked at the robbers, who shouted and rushed to attack the guy in front of them. The guy quickly caught the blade, which was flying towards him, with his bare hands, and then delivered a powerful kick. The robbers with crossbows were shocked by what they saw, and at that moment, the guy turned in their direction. Keima deftly dodged every arrow that flew towards him. The men were shocked by what they saw. The guy quickly headed in their direction. The hero strikes them one by one, causing the men to fly in different directions with a loud scream. The carrier and the girls watched from the wagon. Laura looked at the guy and said that it was finally over. After a while, all the robbers were defeated. They were lying on the ground and mumbling something. The guy told them to shut up. Keima approached Rorona, who was standing near a tree, saying that he had finished. The girl said she thought it would be at least difficult for the guy to fight with so many. It was slightly different from her ideas. Keima awkwardly mumbled something, and the girl replied that he should score, because she was talking to herself. Lilina turned to the guys and said that then they could go. After a while, the cart set off again. After a while, it got dark, and the cart stopped. The carrier began to take care of the horses. Rorona ate quietly, holding a vessel with liquid in her other hand. Female was sitting and reading a book when someone handed her a piece of food. She turned around and saw Rorona, who uttered the words that the girl must be hungry. Female apologized in response and said that she was of little use in the last fight. The girl replied so that Female would not worry about this. She leaned over and explained that the girl was still new to this. Rorona said that the girl should think about what she can do while watching the fight. Female enthusiastically accepted the girl's advice. Rorona turned around and looked towards the guy who was eating. She called out to Keima and put her hand on his shoulder. The girl said with a smile that the guy still did not turn out to be a windbag. The guy awkwardly thanked the girl. Keima asked Verona if he could stop checking on him like that. The girl apologized for that. Verona turned away and started talking about the guy's fighting style. She said that not every beginner will perform such movements. The girl asked where the guy studied martial arts. Keima was slightly surprised. He waved at Laura and threw his arm over her shoulder, saying that, in any case, her swordsmanship was also amazing. He asked Laura that she had agreed. The goddess said that when she saw the dazzling movements of the girl, she was amazed. After an awkward pause, Verona laughed, which surprised the guy. She replied that there was nothing special there. After all, she learned this technique in order to survive. Verona said that she decided for herself that either she was honing her skill or she was dying in battle. That's all. Femel asked if she could ask a question. She asked what the girl meant by that, to which Verona replied that she was just an orphan. Keima asked about it again, to which she replied that it was a long story. She continued her story. Verona shared that her parents died shortly after she was born. She, being a half-elf, was left completely without relatives. Because of this, the girl was sent to an orphanage, which was located on the outskirts of her native village. Since the village was completely impoverished, the children had nothing to eat. Verona was slowly dying of hunger, and when she was about 7 years old, she took a sword and went into the forest to hunt. That's how Verona began to hone her skills. She continued to hunt different animals every day. And fortunately, with the skills she inherited from her late swordsman father, the girl managed to get through these events. However, someone mercifully decided to buy the girl's skills. It was Lilina. Verona said that after buying her talent, she serves the Golden Prairie to this day. All the guys were sitting and listening to the girl's story. Female looked at Verona and told the girl that she was very strong. Female shared that she has also been alone for as long as she can remember. The girl could understand the difficulties Verona was facing. At these words, Laura sighed and said the words that she could not say that she had similar failures. However, she agreed that Verona really had a hard time. In response, Verona asked Laura about why the girl became an adventurer. Laura awkwardly tried to answer. She said that she is aiming for a lifestyle where she can eat and sleep whenever she wants, or something like that. Verona nodded in understanding with a smile. She repeated the girl's words about a lifestyle in which you can eat and sleep whenever you want. She asked Laura if she could achieve it, would it be for the best? Verona said the words that only some adventurers can handle this, a small part of the people who are truly called geniuses. Laura waved her hand awkwardly at the girl's words. Verona stood up, saying that it seemed they were too caught up in conversations. The girl announced that she would continue to guard them. Laura thought about it all the time and then asked if it really meant, in other words, that she was a real genius. Keima immediately refuted her words. He told the girl to stop talking nonsense because they also needed to get ready for security. A whole week passed like that. Despite numerous encounters with monsters along the way, their crew progressed without much trouble. The cart stopped again and the boys got out. They managed to reach the end in one piece. Lilina turned to the group of people and greeted them with a smile. She said it was the workshop of the Golden Prairie. A man ran out to meet them, who joyfully exclaimed that it was Lilina and Verona. Verona, unloading the cart, replied that these were all the materials they had brought so far. The man replied with a smile that they had brought quite a lot. They opened one of the crates that contained the ore. Female exclaimed in shock that it was mithril. She had heard that even a small amount of it was worth like a gold coin. Lilina laughed and said that this was a grandiose way to express his value. She replied that there were few metals that could match the value of mithril. The girl cleared her throat and addressed the guys with the words. The girl said that she was going to show them the workshop. However, Verona asked to wait a bit. She explained that she would like to discuss something about the assignment with Keima. The guy was at a loss. Lilina replied that then they would take a break first, to which Verona replied with words of gratitude. The guy went after the girl. They moved away from everyone, and Keima asked Verona what she wanted to talk about. The girl sighed and said the words that finally all the obstacles were behind her, which surprised the guy. He asked Verona what she meant by that. At that moment, the girl suddenly pointed her sword at the guy. She turned to Keima with the words that he should fight her. The situation suddenly changed. The guy asked about the girl's words, about the battle with her. Verona asked if something was really wrong. She told the guy to hurry up and get his blade out. Keima replied that he did not remember doing anything that would provoke the girl's hostility. Rorona just snorted at that. The girl asked if the guy really thinks that he can escape when everything is not going according to his plan. She exclaimed that the guy's resemblance to him was simply amazing. Keima asked who he was talking about, when suddenly Rorona attacked a guy who barely had time to react. She said that if he was wondering where her hostility came from, she would tell him if he could defeat her. Keima looked at the girl and, taking out his sword, replied that there was nothing to be done then. Rorona was glad that he was finally ready to fight. They pointed their blades at each other and began the battle. The girl rushed towards the guy with a quick attack. Their swords collided with a loud sound. Rorona flew back with a scream. Keima was still on his feet in front of the girl, who coughed. She exclaimed the words that it was impossible. There's no way a rookie would parry her punches like that. She was completely discouraged. Rorona cried out with tears in her eyes that she couldn't have made such a mistake in the middle of the fight. Shame gripped her. The guy looked at her in confusion. Rorona said that maybe her swordsmanship skills had weakened because she hadn't practiced for a long time. She was wondering what to do. Keima asked the girl if she was still here. Rorona turned all red at the guy's words. She turned away abruptly and then stood up. She chuckled and confidently said the words that it looks like the guy is not bad for a beginner. The girl added that, unfortunately, she was unwell. For this reason, she suggested postponing their duel for now. The guy replied that no matter how she looked at it, he still won. Rorona shouted for the guy to shut up. Keima awkwardly replied that, in any case, could the girl tell him the reason for her attacks? Rorona turned around and, after a short silence, agreed. She asked if the guy remembered how she told him that she grew up in an orphanage. Keima replied in the affirmative. The girl began to talk about the fact that at that time her mother came down with a serious illness. After that, her country found itself in the middle of a war. Her father went to work to pay for medicines. He was transporting food and supplies to the front. Rorona, along with her poor mother, waited for his return day after day. However, no matter how long they waited, he did not return. And a few months later, a soldier approached them with a message. It said that the girl's father appropriated the supplies he was supposed to deliver to himself. And after that, he left his comrades and fled to a neighboring country. This story surprised the guy very much. He listened in silence as the girl talked about how he had abandoned them as a result, without even saying so. He left them to die in this pit of poverty. Rorona continued the story, saying that the people around them began to look at them with sympathy, and to her, those looks seemed contemptuous rather than comforting. And in the end, her mother became very ill, and the girl, being a helpless child, could only watch as she left this world. Rorona convinced herself that her father died for her on the same day as her mother. She decided that she would never rely on anyone. The only ones worthy of her faith are Sister Lilina and her companions in the Golden Prairie. The guy silently listened to the words of the girl, who finished her story. She asked if the guy understood now. She said that the moment she sees a guy doing something suspicious, she won't hesitate to behead him. Keima replied that he understood her situation. However, putting aside the fact that he agreed to do this task at Lilina's request, he still has no plans to give it up. The guy said that for this reason, until Rorona has faith in him, he will accept any challenge from her. The girl was greatly embarrassed by the guy's word. She gave him a slight nod and then quickly turned away. She snorted again and said the words that it was hard to believe what the guy said. They were suddenly interrupted by Lilina, who, seeing these two, asked if they were finished. Her question surprised both of them. Lilina came closer to them and asked Keima's permission to show him the workshop. Rorona called out to Lilina, who looked at the girl questioningly. Rorona said the words that eavesdropping on a conversation is not like a girl. Lilina asked in surprise what it was about, and then she replied that she came over when they had already finished. After that, they went to inspect the workshop, where everyone was actively engaged in their own business. Lilina talked about how the guys see that they are conducting research and designing armor in this place. She went on, where she picked up a sweater. She said it was their work of art, mithril clothes. Clothing with mithril fibers is very comfortable and increases resistance to magic. Rorona's combat outfit was just made using it. Lilina stopped with the words that it would be faster if the guys saw everything for themselves. The girl asked if Rorona was against it, to which she replied that she didn't seem to have a choice. Rorona changed into a special suit and they went outside. The girl turned to Lilina and told her not to give in. The girl swung her weapon, using the fireball skill, which quickly attacked Rorona. The attacked girl just stood there and did not move. The fireball hit her, but she remained unharmed. Laura, Themiel, and Keima were shocked by what they saw. Lilina said with a smile that this material improves defensive abilities against magic. She said that this opportunity is not given to everyone. Lilina offered to show them how mithril fiber is made. After that, they went to the field. The girl said that first they add mithril dust to the soil, and then white mulberry leaves grow out of the soil. And then these leaves are eaten by silkworms. When they turn into pupae, they wrap themselves in this thread to make a cocoon. They collect these cocoons and dry them in a special device. Lilina said that was all. Laura exclaimed that they looked so mysterious and beautiful up close. The guy thought that when the girl said about the mithril fiber, he thought that it would be like chainmail, but it turned out to be very soft. Lilina, watching them, laughed. She asked Keima if he liked sweets. The guy replied that he was trying to limit himself, but he liked them. The girl replied that it was good. She said there were actually a couple of things she wanted to discuss. After some time, they went to the house where the guests, with the wish to enjoy, were served strawberry cheesecake. Lilina said that this is the pride of her native village, so the guys should give it a try. Laura exclaimed that he looked great. Keima looked at the dessert and thought that it really looked delicious. However, he was sure that the girl needed something from them. Laura said that if no one is against it, then she will try dessert first. The girl tasted a piece of cheesecake and mumbled with satisfaction. She said that this cream is so delicate that it melts in your mouth. Laura said it was like slime was slowly melting inside her. Lilina replied with a laugh that the girl seemed to like it. The guy was thinking that for the first time he envied Laura's carelessness. Lilina said that now we can get down to business. She started with mutated species. The girl said that they recently learned from neighbors that they had seen strange monsters. At the moment, Rorona is engaged in protecting the village. Keima replied that he understood. He said the words that the girl was trying to say so that he would continue to help her. Lilina replied that the guy saved her the need to tell more. Lilina said that the girl can be quirky sometimes, but Rorona is pretty honest about her feelings. Lilina would be very happy if they got along. The guy replied that he would try. After that, Lilina pointed her hand towards the maid and told them to take a look. There was a mithril fiber in the box. Lilina said that despite the fact that the guy has already shown his strength, it is also important to stay well equipped. For this reason, the girl said that if everyone agrees, she can make them new clothes. Keima awkwardly replied that they probably wouldn't have that much money. Lilina told the guy not to worry. She said she would give them a special offer. One set for only 150,000, two for 300,000. She asked if they would be willing to pay that price. The guy replied that it was true. And then she asked how it happened that the reward for the task exactly matched the cost of the costumes. The girl replied with a smile so that the guy wouldn't look at her like that. She said that if they wore them, it would make her some kind of advertisement. Not to mention that they will need armor sooner or later. Lilina said the words that she would be just happy if the guy thought about it. The guy agreed. He put off this moment for a long time because he was constantly busy. However, it seems that his school uniform is really not that comfortable. Besides, he stood out in it. But Keima was confused by the price of 150,000. Armor with protection from magic is just a dream. On the other hand, he would have been happy with something cheaper. Laura looked at the guy who was thinking that he could buy a set for female and he would wait for better times. Laura raised her hand. She replied to Lilina that there was no problem with that. She asked to give them 2 sets for female and Keima. The guy was in shock. He grabbed Laura and asked who told her that she could make such decisions on her own. Laura replied to the guy, saying that it was obvious that he wanted him. She could see it in his eyes. The girl said with a smile that even if he regretted it, wouldn't it be better to try and regret it than not to try at all? Keima agreed with Laura and then asked what it meant if she didn't mind if they used her part of the fee to pay for it. Laura was very surprised. After they entrusted Lilina with making their armor, they were given a room in one of the workshops to spend the night. While Keima was sleeping, Rorona stood guard, surveying the surroundings. The girl was told that there was nothing to report. Rorona said that the girl had done a good job. She came down and told them to leave the rest to her, and the girl could go rest. The girl asked Rorona to give herself a rest. Rorona replied that the girl should not worry. She would just make a small detour and also go to rest. The girl heard something. She asked who was here. The unknown guy sighed. He was injured, which surprised the girls. Rorona asked the adventurer about the wound and what had happened. The guy screamed for help. He said they were attacked by mutated monsters. Rorona thought about what she would do with it. After the wounded guy appeared all of a sudden, the girls helped him. The girl asked how the guy was feeling, to which he replied with words that he seemed to feel a little better. Rorona silently watched what was happening and then suddenly started talking about those mutated species that the guy had met. She asked the guy again about how he said his friend was still fighting with them. The girl sternly looked at the guy in front of her and came to the conclusion that the guy had abandoned him and ran away with his tail between his legs. The guy looked away and responded to these words by saying that he had no other choice. The guy began to tell that during the battle, his partner told him to leave him and run. It was the first time the guy had seen him so worried. He suddenly started bowing his head to the floor and saying that he didn't care that the girl called him a coward. The guy begged the girl to help his friend. Verona looked at the guy, who bowed his head to the ground, confused. She spoke slowly and asked him to tell her where they had come across them, and it was better to do it quickly. This made the guy tremble, and tears flowed from his eyes. The guy began to thank the girl very actively for her help, saying that he would never talk about it. Verona awkwardly told him that everything was fine and that he should finally raise his head. The girl, who was standing next to her, called out her name, asking if she could handle it alone. She anxiously asked if it would be better to call someone else. Verona looked back at her and asked if she was talking about Keima and the others. The girl confidently answered the girl in the affirmative, because according to rumors, there are mutated types of monsters. She was worried that something might happen to the girl. Verona kept silent on these words of the girl, because she was thinking about the guy. She wondered why she was hesitating so much, and hadn't she told him not to get in her way? She reflected that, so far, no matter what the situation was, she had always managed to cope without anyone's help. She remembered that, ever since her father first betrayed her as a child, she had sworn that she would never rely on others. She put her hand on the worried girl's shoulder and said words about not worrying about her. After all, she is the first swordsman of the Golden Prairie after all. After that, Verona turned away from the girl and said the words that she was confident in herself, no matter who her opponent was. The girl, setting off full of determination, confidently thought that she was no longer the weak little girl she once was. Verona deftly jumped on the horse, and the girl shouted the words that even if she did, it was very dangerous to go alone. However, the girl did not listen to the warning and, under the excited cry of the girl, grabbed the reins and quickly rode away on a horse. Meanwhile, the comrade of that wounded guy was standing in the middle of the forest, covered in sweat, very out of breath, in front of a huge monster. The guy with a loud shout rushed to attack the monster. He struck a powerful blow at the Minotaur, which did not even move from the opponent's sword. The monster grinned. The monster asked if that was really all the guy could do. He looked at the guy and said the words that it was a pathetic picture, while the guy was sitting on the ground. The monster said the words that the guy was already starting to bother him. The Minotaur said that it was time to eat, and he knew exactly what was on the menu today. The guy swallowed and looked desperately at the monster in front of him, when suddenly a wind attack appeared. The monster was attacked by Verona, who attacked the Minotaur with a scream. Immediately after that, the girl powerfully kicked the monster with her foot right in the face. From this blow, he fell to the ground. The girl quickly approached the guy and, sitting down next to him, asked if the guy was okay, to which he asked in response who she was. While Verona was responding with the words that his friend had asked her to come and help, she put her hand in a small purse. She told the guy to open his mouth. The girl opened a small vessel and put her hand on his face to pour the liquid into it. She showed him the vial and told him that even the Golden Prairie could produce only a small amount of this valuable serum. Verona said that if the guy drinks it, it will heal even his mortal wounds, but it takes time. The guy excitedly asked the girl if she was sure she wanted to spend it on him instead of keeping it for herself. The girl got up and, heading back to the monster, replied with words that he should not worry. She took her sword tighter and said the words that a Minotaur of this level was not a hindrance to her. She would deal with him faster than the monster would have time to recover. The guy suddenly shouted in alarm the words that she should wait. The girl stopped. She looked at the guy. In a panic, he shouted the words that this was not an ordinary Minotaur. Verona turned to the guy and asked what he meant. The guy looked intently at the girl, still sitting on the ground, and hesitated. He started telling the girl about this monster. The guy said that in his first fight with him, he had the form of an orc. He continued by saying that after the guy cut him in half, the monster's body began to revive in the form of an ogre. The guy shared that after he killed him again, the monster turned into this Minotaur. Verona was silent and listened intently to the guy's story about the mutation of the monster. She turned to the guy and, looking at him, uttered the words that, to sum up, with each death, the monster evolves. The guy confusedly confirmed this conclusion. At that moment, the monster began to make sounds again, and then he got to his feet from the ground. He looked at the girl. Rorona turned to the monster and uttered the words that if what the guy was saying was true, then it was dangerous to make rash decisions. Rorona thought that in that case, if she managed to break through his vital area, his core, then he would not be able to be reborn. After a little thought, the girl rushed to attack the monster with a loud scream. She swung her sword. In a few quick strokes, he destroyed the monster into pieces, standing confidently on the ground. Rorona turned around, looked at the monster, and said that even if she didn't know what it was, all she had to do was cut it into pieces. She looked at the remains of the monster that lay right in front of her, and said the words that it was better to get rid of the remaining parts as soon as possible before he recovered. However, before the girl could finish, the monster's body floated. It has become more stringy. This mixture began to gather quickly into a pile, turning into a single whole. The girl was completely shocked by what she saw. She stared through the haze at the monster, in shock, trying to ask what it was. At that moment, an even larger creature appeared from behind the smoke, which, reaching out to the girl, said that it would definitely remember this pain. Rorona had a view of a giant monster that was looking directly at the girl. Now, the monster has evolved into a cyclops. The monster jumped instantly, and the girl was shocked to think that he was pretty fast. Cyclops punched the place where the girl who had managed to react was standing. She jumped aside. Rorona pushed her hand off the ground and jumped high. She swung with a loud cry that the monster should not dare to underestimate her. After that, the girl struck at the Cyclops with her sword. However, nothing happened. Rorona was shocked. She wondered if that was what the monster meant when he talked about remembering pain. At the same moment, the Cyclops swung and delivered a powerful blow directly at the girl, who flew back. She hit the ground with a scream. The girl coughed violently. She tried to get up and thought about what kind of monster it was because the difference in their strength was too great. The girl, lying on the ground, looked at the monster and thought that she had overestimated herself and found herself in such a situation. She thought that maybe it meant that she was still like a child. She became sadder. Rorona watched and thought that she was so powerless, just like when she was a weak loner. Rorona remembered that those were bitter times, and her heart was constantly hurting. She always wanted to shout the words for someone to help her. The girl mentally laughed at herself and tried to get up again. She noticed that she seemed to be thinking about it again. She thought of Lilina, who said that the older sisters always take care of the safety of the younger ones. She also thought about the girl who told Rorona that she was worried that something might happen to the girl. Rorona thought of Keima saying that until a non-girl had faith in him, he would accept any challenge she offered. The girl thought with tears in her eyes that it was true. She always wanted someone to come and save her. At that moment, she sat down and uttered words about someone coming and saving the girl. She, still crying, loudly shouted a request for anyone to help her. She begged for it. Rorona lowered her head, and behind her Keima appeared on the tree, who uttered the words that he thought he would not wait for the girl to say it. The girl quickly turned in the direction of the voice, but the guy had already disappeared from the tree branch by that moment. Suddenly, at the same moment, the monster's arm shattered into small pieces. He didn't even have time to react. The guy landed neatly with the monster in his arms. Rorona looked at the guy in shock. She loudly called out the guy in front of her by name. The guy who responded to her cries for help turned out to be Keima. Rorona was very surprised and asked Keima what he was doing in this place. At the same time, the guy was carrying a huge hand of the Minotaur. He carefully broke off the index finger from the monster's hand, then threw it in an unknown direction, content with his action. After that, the guy held out his hand to Rorona and asked if she could get up. The girl was surprised and touched. She wanted to take his hand, but quickly changed her face and swung. She hit Keima on the arm with a calm expression on her face, which greatly surprised the guy. He looked at his red hand in disbelief and asked Rorona what had happened. The girl was crushed and fell to the ground, asking why he helped. Rorona burst into tears and asked why he was saving someone like her. She exclaimed that it would have been better if he had left her alone in this place. Keima was very confused and backed away, not knowing what to say. He said it didn't make any sense, and then asked if she had called for help. The girl covered her head with her hands and told him to shut up. She just lost her temper after everything. She put her hand on her knee and tried to stand up. She said that she initially decided to go against the monster alone, and the fear of death is something she doesn't seem to feel anymore. She raised her sword and said that it would be better to fight to the death than to live with his sympathy. Rorona was visibly embarrassed by the situation. Keima caught her by the shoulder and stopped her, saying that he would not let this happen now. He said the words that Lelina asked him to help his sister. Rorona was confused and did not understand at all what she could do. Keima awkwardly closed his eyes, thinking that there seemed to be nothing he could do about it. After that, he walked towards the girl, before addressing her by name. He told Rorona to let him express his thoughts, because he didn't care at all, even if she thought he was just a hindrance to them. He said that she didn't really think so, and then asked if it was true. Rorona looked down and hesitated. Keima said that she should at least rely on him in a difficult situation, because no one would laugh, even if she asked for help. Rorona fell silent, looking at the floor, and her sword hand sank lower and lower. She awkwardly asked if he was mad at her. The guy was surprised by such a question. Rorona waved her hands and asked if he remembered what happened during their fight with the bandits, or when she called him to a duel. Keima thought about it, then said that it was a little strange, but it didn't seem to make anyone worse. He smiled and added that it's okay to help someone when they ask him to. Rorona blushed and was touched by his words. She understood everything and looked down, thinking that after all the terrible things she had done to him, she thought he would leave her, but she was the only one who thought so. The guy smiled awkwardly, saying that this was not at all what he should have said. Rorona looked away, thinking how stupid she was. She realized that she had thought everything completely differently, and all because of her stupid pride. She came closer and said the words that she understood. She put her hand on Keima's shoulder, after which she said she would leave the rest to him, after which she thanked him for saving her. She looked embarrassed. When she was already leaving there, Keima turned around and said the words that there was no problem. He gripped his muscles and said the words that she could leave it to him. Suddenly, he caught her by the arm and told her that he had to deal with her wounds first. Rorona was a little surprised when he stopped her and told her about it. When it got dark, Keima noticed that some noise was rising behind him. He turned around and sighed wearily. As it turned out, quite recently the severed arm began to come together, and a huge minotaur appeared from it, which looked angry. Keima noted that the right arm he had previously injured had already recovered. As he had heard, it would strengthen with every fatal injury, and he didn't seem to be able to just mindlessly attack the monster. Rorona, standing at a safe distance, asked the guy what he was going to do. Keima said that he already had a plan, but before that he wanted to do something. At that moment, the monster attacked the guy. He quickly hit the ground, but Keima managed to dodge and jump high enough to be at eye level with the monster. Keima hit the monster in the eye and said he needed to get some more sleep. Seeing this, Laura called out to him, and he immediately turned around. Looking at the characteristics of the third-level monster, Keima couldn't help but be amazed, because they were almost the same as his, but the guy was at 1688th level. Laura said about the white cloud, also noting that it is the name of a monster that uses sand near itself to change its appearance. She said it was something like a Cyclops doll. She declared that he would not die until the guys destroyed his real body inside the doll. Keima asked if Laura knew where the body was. The girl calmly confirmed it. She said that she initially wanted to determine exactly where she was, but she didn't seem to be able to. She thought about it and said that they seemed to be inside the doll somewhere, but she wasn't sure. Keima tensed, noticing that even Laura wasn't sure. Rorona came up behind Laura and said that everything was clear. She said the words that she now understood what she had been feeling all this time. She assumed that his core was moving so fast that his eyes simply couldn't keep up with him. Keima asked Rorona if she was sure about this. The girl was not sure, but this is one of the possible options. She said that if they had another chance, they would definitely be able to figure it out. She clenched her hand into a fist. After that, she turned to Keima and said that the moment he attacks again, she will try to calculate the location where the monster's core is located. She asked if he would let her join. Keima thought about it, after which he said that he did not mind, but she should be as careful as possible. Suddenly, he was very surprised and turned around. The guy saw that the Minotaur was flying straight at him, wanting to kill the guy. Keima jumped out of there in time. At that moment, Famil appeared behind him, who said she would help him. The girl raised her staff, then ordered a column of glacial ice to destroy her enemy. She aimed an ice needle, which pierced the monster's eye quite easily. For a moment, the Minotaur froze, after which, with a loud cry, he clamped his eye, trying to get rid of the pain. Keima thought it was great, because they had a chance. He took out a third-level white cloud finger, which he had previously taken away when he cut off the monster's arm last time. He took a quick bite. He immediately clutched at his throat, thinking that the taste was simply disgusting to the point that he wanted to die. At that moment, he was delighted to notice that his stats had improved. and now it was time for him to end it. He waved his hand, then jumped high and rushed straight at the enemy. The Minotaur did not have time to dodge, as at the moment Keima hit him in the chest. After that, he kicked it, sending the monster flying. At the last moment, he landed and took out his sword. The guy exclaimed that this was the end. With quick sword strokes, he continued to attack the monster over and over again, turning it into a mess. At the last moment, he put the sword back into its scabbard, while the monster's body fell apart into many pieces of different sizes. The head fell to the floor, after which it blurred into a huge puddle. Suddenly, the monster uttered the words that it was just a waste of energy. All the severed body parts began to gather into a single mass. Someone said that it doesn't matter how many times Keima kills him because he won't die, and this pain only feeds him on the contrary. Meanwhile, Rorona was completely focused on finding the source of the sound. Standing on a tall tree, she grinned because she had found the one who directed the doll. She took out her sword and opened her eyes wide, then quickly swung the weapon. In the blink of an eye, the monster's head was destroyed. The scary creature asked how it was possible that such a small thing as Rorona had defeated him. The monster fell apart into small pieces, and Rorona sighed. She adjusted her ears and said the words that even though she was like that, she was very good at detecting presence. She said that he lost because he lost his guard. Suddenly, a round object fell out of the monster's body. Rorona returned the sword to its scabbard, then walked over and picked up the object. Keima came up and happily said that they had done it. Rorona sighed, then said the words that even if she couldn't do it, he would have done it on his own. She asked if it was true or not. Keima laughed awkwardly. Rorona sighed and stood up, then handed the guy a round object. She blushed and said the words that this was his reward for the victory, and it belonged to Keima. Keima took the object and asked in surprise if she was sure. Rorona was silent for a while, after which she suddenly bowed low, which embarrassed Keima. She blushed and turned to him, after which she apologized for all her rudeness towards him. She also awkwardly added that she had just snapped at him earlier. After that, she loudly exclaimed that he would hit her back, otherwise she would simply not calm down. The guy was surprised and asked what she was talking about. His thoughts were confused, so he stopped her. Keima stretched out his hand and said the words that he knew how serious she was, but even if she said it, he could not do what she asked. Suddenly, someone agreed with Rorona. Laura said that if she realized she was wrong, then she should just accept the experience. She smiled sweetly and said that no matter how many times she had done wrong in the past, she was sure it was not in vain. Rorona was touched by Laura's words. Keima smiled and agreed, after which he said that there are people who do not learn from mistakes. Laura was surprised and asked who he was talking about. Suddenly, Keima hit Laura on the head, and she cried out loudly in shock. He said that, therefore, instead of hitting Rorona, he would hit Laura. He asked if it was fine. Rorona agreed in surprise, then smiled. The girl laughed and said the words that even in such a situation they can safely laugh as if they have no sense of danger at all. The guys were surprised. Rorona said she thinks it's okay to relax like that sometimes. After that, Keima ate the ball left by the monster, and thanks to this, he received a new ability. It was quiet outside. Female helped the wounded men to move on. Rorona turned around and noticed that it seemed to be getting light. She noticed that it had been a really hard day. Keima agreed with her. The boys harnessed the horses. On one horse rode Keima, Laura, and Fimmel, and on the other was Rorona and the traveler. Keima took the reins and said the words that it was time for them to go home. After a long journey, the boys were able to return to the village. The two travelers, who were very worried about each other, met again with tears in their eyes. They hugged each other tightly, rejoicing at this meeting. The guys were smiling at this. The sweet girl hugged Rorona, after which she very happily noticed that the girl was fine. Rorona hugged her back and apologized for having to worry about her. Lilina slowly walked up to Keima and said the words that he had done a great job. The guy awkwardly scratched his head and said the words that it was all thanks to their joint work. Rorona saw her sister and exclaimed joyfully. Rorona shyly lowered her head and apologized to her sister. She said that this time she found herself in trouble by completely ignoring her orders. Lilina went up to her sister and called her name in a trembling voice. Confused, she looked up. Lilina lost her composure and burst into tears. She was very worried about Rorona and was incredibly glad that her sister was okay. She hugged her sister tightly. Rorona blushed and exclaimed that it was outrageous, after which she asked why Lilina had done it so suddenly. She said that the girl was not behaving at all as usual. Lilina came to her senses and gasped loudly, looking at Rorona. After that, she abruptly moved away and said that it was good that Rorona was safe. The girl next to her laughed, talking about how much Lilina was worried. Suddenly, she moved very close to Rona's face, carefully examining it. She said the words that her expression seemed to have softened, compared to what it was before. Did something happen during yesterday's fight? Rona looked away and pretended not to understand what her sister was talking about. Lilina smiled frighteningly. She let Rona go and walked away, saying that they would leave it for later, because she was probably very tired, so she should take a break for the day, for now. Rona blushed, and then agreed with her sister. When she got home, the girl took off her stockings, and then the whole costume. Tired, Rona first touched the water she had collected in the bathroom with her foot, after which she climbed in completely and took a deep breath. She thought about Lilina's words about her face softening. The girl turned around and looked behind her. She thought about how she used to hate Kosakai Keima with all her heart. When she looks at his radiantly pleasant demeanor, she immediately remembers her father, who betrayed her. But she thought about the fact that Keima had never hesitated in his actions. He saved her, and now when she looks at him, her heart feels unusually light. Suddenly, she jumped up, rising from the water. She blushed, thinking that if only her father had been like Keima, then she wouldn't have had to suffer so much in the past. In the early morning, Rona was running down the street for a physical workout. She waved at a friend she saw on the way. The girl thought that even though she had been told to rest earlier, she only came up with the idea of doing her usual workout. Rona swung her sword, hitting the target. She repeated various lunges and movements in order to work out the stance. As a result, she ran out of steam and then lowered the sword to the ground. Rona fell to the ground and took a deep breath. She put her hand to her chest, thinking that the wounds left during yesterday's battle still hurt. She thought that it was time for her to stop for today. Suddenly, she opened her eyes abruptly and fell awkwardly silent. She turned around. The girl turned to her sister, who was sitting next to her and drinking tea, reading a book along the way. Rona asked her if she was bored. Lilina was surprised. She asked if it wasn't okay to have lunch like sisters, at least once in such a time. Rona couldn't stop thinking that it was too unnatural. Rona thought that it was quite normal for her not to know what her sister was thinking, and she shouldn't worry about it. Lilina asked quite calmly if she was thinking about her father. From such a sudden question, Rona spat out all the tea. She awkwardly exclaimed that she wasn't thinking about anything like that. Lilina smiled and said that she shouldn't strain herself so much, because she always had a sad expression when she thought about her father. Rona lowered her gaze and said that this simply could not be. Lilina smiled, saying that it was the truth. Rona tried to deny everything, saying that he was not her father. After these words, she fell silent, and tears flowed from her eyes. She turned away and wiped away her tears. Lilina panicked and started apologizing, saying that it was all because of her. Rona just called her sister. She looked down and sadly said that the father she remembers was always smiling broadly. She admitted that, to be honest, it is still very difficult for her to believe that such a kind father, whom she remembers, could have betrayed her at all. After that, she grabbed Lilina by the shoulders and asked if the girl knew anything about her father. Lilina grinned, then stood up and said that she thought it was already possible to tell her the truth. She stopped smiling and said the words that it would be a long enough story, and therefore Rona should listen to it to the end. At the same time, Keima, being in his house, was sitting next to a basket of balloons, next to which were 2 bottles of different sizes. The guy was juggling balls. He tossed 2 of them high enough, then caught them and put his hands in a cross. His face looked quite tense at this moment. The guy carefully broke the eggs, and the beautiful yolks flowed right into the plate. The protein spread over the surface as Keima swung the plate from side to side. Looking at this, he smiled broadly and laughed, definitely proud of what he had done. Laura asked him what he was doing. In response, he calmly said that she could see for herself what he was cooking. Laura asked if she had seen wrongly that he had just broken the eggs. Keima stated that Lilina had previously told him that he could use the kitchen as soon as he wanted. He's experimenting with all the different ingredients and rites of this town. Laura took a closer look and said that it sounded very interesting. After a while, Keima handed over a plate of mushroom omelet with rice and demi-glace sauce. He exclaimed that everything was ready. Keima asked if the 2 of them would try. Laura was impressed and happily agreed, after which she stated that they should start. Femmel folded her hands, then thanked Keima for the meal. She said it was quite delicious. Listening to this, Keima was glad. After that, he turned and looked at Femmel, who also broke into a smile and said that the egg was very airy and it was very tasty. Keima was very pleased. Laura said that whatever it was, even there he cooks eggs. She picked up a plate of eggshells and said he must be possessed. Keima said the words so that she would not find fault because he just really likes eggs. He took one of them in his hand and said the words that, besides, the only thing that gave him pleasure before arriving there was cooking, and even then, his signature dishes were always made of eggs. Laura asked if he was talking about coming to this world. Keima confirmed this. He said that his parents were always busy with work and returned home late, and he usually ate all kinds of food from different supermarkets. The guy ate it with different side dishes every day, and so he started cooking on his own from the age of 5. He said the words that at some point it pulled him in. Laura said the words that she understood, after which she said that, generally speaking, despite his irresponsibility, he also has his own experiences. Keima raised his hand and apologized for being so irresponsible. After his story, he thought about his home world and his parents. His mother was unusually strict with him, and he always tried to be careful not to anger her. If he's honest with himself, he'll admit that it wasn't easy for him, and he only has bad memories of her. And even when he came to this world, instead of being disappointed because of his life in Japan, he only felt relieved that he was able to free himself from it. After these thoughts, he sadly lowered his gaze and fell silent. He looked up, thinking that he had gone into this world and hadn't even said goodbye to them. He wondered what they were doing now, and if they were sad that he had disappeared so suddenly. Suddenly, someone stroked his head, which greatly surprised Keima. He looked at Laura, who was stroking him, and asked what was wrong. The girl only quietly said that he had a rather sad expression on his face. Hearing this, Keima smiled softly. After that, he walked away a little and thanked the girl, patting her on the head. Laura looked at him and said he was kind of weird. Femil smiled sweetly. At this time, Rorona and Lilina stood silently with each other on the field and looked at the sky. After a while, a rather shocked Rorona asked if her sister really wanted to say that her father had asked Lilina to look after her. Rorona grabbed her sister by the shoulders and asked what she meant, after which she asked if her father had not abandoned her mother. Lilina silently looked at her sister, then lowered her head and said that he really had a very kind heart. But at the same time, he was very clumsy. After these words, Rorona walked away and asked Lilina to continue her story. The girl said that this story was from the time when he served in the army. At that time, the enemy troops were aware of his supply route, and because of this, he found himself in a critical situation when he was surrounded by hordes of enemy troops. He would have had a chance to survive if he had broken through them, but he, shackled by fear, threw all the magic bags that contained supplies. Using them as bait, he was able to escape to another country. However, he was a very serious man, and because of this, he felt extremely guilty for disobeying orders and leaving the battlefield. After telling him that he no longer had the face to see his family, he begged Lilina, a traveling merchant, to save his daughter and wife. After that, he returned to the army in order to be punished. Rorona waved her hands in impatience and asked if Lilina had just accepted his offer. The girl agreed with this. She said that, unfortunately, she could not save Rorona's mother, and for that she apologized. Rorona said that Lilina should definitely limit her kindness, because her father was really a real fool. Immediately after these words, she burst into tears, bitterly, and said that he just needed to come back. Rorona said the words that she just wanted him to stay with her. She knew she didn't really want to be strong. The only thing she wanted was to talk and play with her father. If she had told about her feelings, she was sure that she would have just been laughed at, and therefore she suffered to keep this mask. Even if she told her that her father had always loved her, she didn't know what to do about it now. Without restraining her emotions any further, Rorona screamed loudly. Lilina hugged her sister from behind as she cried bitterly. They stood there for quite a long time until they returned home. The very next day, Keima and Femil received the mithril items that they had previously asked Lilina to make. Keima warmed up well in his new clothes, thinking that they fit him perfectly. The guy also thought that it was very easy for him to move in new clothes, which makes him feel great. He squatted down and then asked where Laura was now. Femil said that the girl left in the morning, saying that she had some very urgent errand. Laura was looking in an unknown direction with a wide grin. Suddenly, standing on a rock that was slightly higher than the one on which Femil and Keima stood, she exclaimed that she had been waiting for this moment for ages. She jumped down, being on the same level with the guys. She jumped up and told them to take a look. She said that in addition to being resistant to fire, she also gained resistance to water, wind, earth, and cuts. In her new costume, she uttered the words that this divine garment is the power of the gods. Laura smiled proudly and asked if they were surprised. Keima and Femil stared at her in silence, while their faces showed no emotion other than surprise. Keima sighed, then asked what kind of nonsense it was. Laura awkwardly said that she felt a little lonely because it was as if everyone had abandoned her. That's why she spent all the remaining goddess points on it. Keima continued to do the warm-up, saying that he understood her. Femel was smiling silently. It was pretty quiet in the village. Keima shook hands with Lilina with a smile, after which they set off together with Female and Laura. On the way, the guy said that they would definitely miss this place because this village is full of good people. The guys agreed and said that the food was very tasty and everything turned out just great. Female said she hopes that one day they will be able to return. Laura agreed, and Keima said that they could look at the sights when everything calmed down. Suddenly, Keima noticed someone's figure to the side and stopped. There was an equipped Rorona in front of them, who exclaimed that they were very slow because it had already been an hour and a half since their departure. When they saw the girl, all the guys were confused and fell silent. Keima came closer and asked the girl if she would also go with them. Rorona agreed and said that she also had business in the city. Keima smiled, thinking about her business. He held out his hand to her and smiled, inviting the girl to go together. The girl suddenly fell to her knees and looked up at Keima. In a serious tone, she told the guy that she had one request for him. Suddenly, she closed her eyes and politely asked Keima to marry her, which surprised the guy very much. Keima listened to what Rorona had told him about her father. The girl replied that everything was as he had said earlier. She awkwardly uttered the words that it didn't matter how much she pretended. Deep down, Rorona always wanted someone to save her. She thought she was so stupid. The girl said the words that she had been thinking about it all night, and finally realized her own feelings. The guy asked what the girl meant. Rorona looked at the guy in embarrassment at these words. She confidently uttered the words that she loves Keima. For that reason, from that moment on, she wanted to work for him. Keima was shocked. He replied that it was quite unexpected, to which Rorona asked what the guy's answer would be. He replied with a smile that, putting aside the wedding moment, it would be great if she joined them. Keima started talking about how he would be happy to work with her from now on, but he didn't have time to finish. The girl grabbed the guy's face with her hand and kissed him. Female and Laura, who were nearby, were amazed. After the kiss, Rorona pulled away from the guy. She awkwardly uttered the words that this is what a kiss is like. The girl said that now that she has tried it, she is quite embarrassed, and the guy was shocked that she did it surreptitiously. Rorona looked at the guy and asked how he felt and if he understood her determination now, to which the guy remained silent. He replied by saying that the girl was surprisingly cheeky. Rorona asked, confused, if she had done something wrong. She blushed and apologized because it was the first time she had felt this way. The girl was not sure how to act. After that, Rorona told Keima that it would be great if he stopped treating her respectfully and addressed her simply by her first name. She was thinking about what a sobering reaction the guy had while Female was watching them, who was sulking. Female suddenly called out the guy's name and grabbed his hand. She pulled the confused guy to her and kissed him. This time, Rorona and Laura were shocked. The guy called out questioningly to Female, who also addressed the guy by name. She exclaimed in embarrassment that she loved the guy. For this reason, she asked to be allowed to become a candidate for his wife. Suddenly, they were shouted to stop. Laura exclaimed for them to wait, because Keima is her follower. She wasn't going to let them do that. The girl grabbed the guy by the hand and asked if he remembered that he fell right on her chest and promised to take on this responsibility. The guy asked if that was the case. Laura hugged the guy and shouted the words that, in any case, Keima belongs to her. Female intervened with the words that it would be up to the guy to decide. The three girls looked at Keima with a demand to make a decision. The guy replied in complete confusion that he had already understood everything. He said that he would think about the wedding after they arrived in the city. Rorona replied to this, then she doesn't mind. Keima asked Laura and Female if they agreed with these, to which they replied in the affirmative. They set off in a carriage, which was silent. Keima looked at the girls and thought that he would have to marry one of the three. He thought about it, not that he was happy about his sudden popularity. The hero did not know what to do now. Suddenly, Keima noticed something. The guy saw a large number of armed orcs. Rorona was immediately thrown out of the cart with the words that she would take care of them. The guy agreed, and the girl quickly began to attack monsters on the way. Suddenly, ice arrows flew past Rorona, which quickly hit several monsters. Female turned to Keima with words that he would let her get rid of them, to which the guy hesitantly agreed. At that moment, one of the monsters aimed an arrow at Laura. The girl saw it and shouted for it to be provided to her. The girl began to cast a spell. She said the words that her name was Laura Jean Cupid. The girl told me to bow down before her. Laura was about to use the god's attack when suddenly this monster was defeated by Rorona. Laura froze in shock, and Rorona asked what was wrong because she had already finished. In the evening, they stopped at the houses. Laura sat in a depressed state and was silent. Rorona turned to the girl and said that it was quite childish to be sad about such a thing. This was Laura's rare chance to prove herself. The girl gave her a mug. Rorona said that the pride of her village is a fruit drink. She poured it into a mug, saying that Laura would get better. She also held out her hand to Famille and asked what about her. To this, the girl replied uncertainly that maybe she would drink 1 cup. Laura replied to Rorona that she shouldn't actually drink this, to which the girl replied that she shouldn't worry because she still has grape juice. Laura happily took the mug. She said that a girl can be caring, but it's not enough to heal her broken heart. Female said the words that Laura looks happy. 1 hour later, a large number of empty beverage containers were lying on the ground. Someone abruptly put down the bottle. Laura tearfully said the words that Keima is just terrible because she always tries so hard and he makes her look stupid. Rorona nodded and replied that she understood, as she was familiar with this feeling. She said she thought the guy was just being modest. Perhaps it would be awkward for him to praise a girl. Rorona patted the girl on the head in front of her, telling her to be proud of herself. After all, sooner or later the guy realizes her efforts. Laura looked at the girl. She then rushed to her with tears, talking about what a good girl she was. Female, watching what was happening, said that Laura was so easily influenced. Half an hour later, Laura was lying on the ground and fast asleep, while Rorona and Famille were talking at the table. Rorona said that means it has happened before. Famille has also had her share of difficulties. She replied that, comparing with Rorona, it was nothing at all. The girl asked if this was enough to become a great adventurer. She said that continuing to follow her dream is not as easy as it seems. You should not be discouraged, and Female looked at the girl next to her with a smile. Female said that it was quite strange, but she didn't feel like Rorona was some kind of stranger. She felt warm inside. Female shook hands with Rorona and apologized for the past. She said she would be happy to work with her, to which Rorona agreed. In the morning, the cart set off again. Keima turned around to see how the girls were doing. The 3 of them were sitting and having a nice conversation about something. Keima wondered if something had happened to them last night. After a whole week on the road, they finally began to get closer to something. The guy exclaimed that he saw him. They arrived in the city. The guy said the words that he had not been to this place for a long time. Laura added that this was the town of Kelville. The girl greeted the guys with a smile and said that they had done a great job with their journey. She pointed to the bags of coins and said the words that this was their reward for destroying the mutant. The guy was surprised. Laura said she was glad she wasn't working for free. Keima commented on her words by saying that she had not done anything. He told her to pack up because they were going back to the hotel. After some time, they arrived at the Crescent Hotel, where Asha greeted them with a shout. She spoke with tears in her eyes about how she was so sad that Keima was not there. Asha poured the guy a drink, saying that everything was at her expense today. Morgan Habib sat down next to the guy, saying that they were waiting for him. He offered the guy a drink at their expense. Laura said the words that the guy fits perfectly into this bar. Keima awkwardly apologized to the girls, saying that it would take some time. Femille replied that everything was fine, then they would return to the room. They told the guy to enjoy himself. The girls went to Keima's room. Rorona started talking about something, and Femille replied that she was mentally ready. The girl began to take off her sweater and shorts. Rorona said the words that this is a great show. Laura exclaimed that she would undress too. Rorona took off her pants, saying how good their mood was. By this point, the guy was walking down the hallway, scratching his head and thinking that he was finally free. He opened the door to the room, telling Dom that he hadn't seen him for a long time, even though it was just a hotel. Keima suddenly froze at what he saw. He was amazed because there were girls in nighties standing in front of him, greeting their hubby. The guy asked in confusion that it was really in fashion now. Femille turned to Keima and told him that they had talked here. The girl hesitated a little and then exclaimed that they had decided that all 3 of them would become his wives. The guy asked in shock what they meant. Femille pointed to the bed and said the words that, before that, they would like the guy to make them his own. Keima asked again and asked again and asked if they wanted him to make them his property, to which the girl replied in the affirmative. They were a little worried, but they had prepared well, so they thought everything was fine. Rorona asked awkwardly what he would do. She said that it was possible to have 3 at once, because it was something new for all of them. He could call them one at a time. Keima thought that they had left the choice up to him. He wonders if they are normal at all. The guy asked Laura if she understood exactly what the girls meant. She replied that she was a girl and could do it when the time came. She said she would impress him with her charm and techniques. The girls stared at the guy, who thought that everything was going well, but enough of that. If everything is voluntary, then even God himself will not be able to stop them, even if he wants to find happiness. The guy took a deep breath and agreed. He accepted their offer to get married, which made the girls smile happily. Verona thanked him for not refusing. Now that everything is done, you can look for a new home. The guy asked about the house in confusion, to which Verona replied in the affirmative. She said that this hotel is quite small. The guy was thinking about a new house, and Verona asked if everything was okay, to which the guy replied that the hotel was really small. Keima asked the girl about the approximate cost of a house in this country. The girl looked at him questioningly. The next day, Asha happily congratulated Keima on finally starting to build a family. She sadly added the words that the truth was that it would be a little lonely in their hotel now. The guy exclaimed that it would happen when they had enough money. In the end, they postponed the wedding until they bought a house. The guy had to postpone the overnight stay with all three at once. It upset him a little. Keima was thinking about buying a house. He thought that, of course, it was all a little strange with Laura, but they tried so hard for a guy like him. The guy thought that he needed to at least save up money to buy a house, otherwise he would be a complete loser. Asha looked at the guy with a smile and said the words that he had grown up noticeably. She always knew that this newcomer would grow into something big, ever since she saw him enter her tavern. The guy said that if he was not mistaken, then she said that she felt it was fate when she saw the guy drinking. She exclaimed that he had misunderstood. Although she loves drinks, that's the only reason she doesn't judge men, so she lied. After that, the guy asked if there was any good way to make money in this place. The girl repeated his question and thought about it. She suddenly remembered something when the guy asked about it. She opened the book and told the guy to take a look at it. It said that it was the best delicacy on their continent, the horned pufferfish. Asha said that this is a super rare and very poisonous fish that lives in desert oases. Her liver is a delicacy, and it was also said that they give a lot for it. The guy stared at the book in surprise. He thought about the value of the house if he could catch her. Suddenly, the girl interrupted him and added words that, to be honest, this was her personal preference. She told me that there is such a thing called a fin drink. This is when the fins are fried over an open fire and then dipped into a drink. She was told that the fin of the horned pufferfish is very delicate and simply tastes divine. Asha said that she had tried almost all kinds of drinks, but she had long dreamed of trying it. The guy thought about it after that and looked at the book. He was thinking about those fins Asha had dreamed of. He suddenly got up from his chair and exclaimed the words that they had agreed. The guy grabbed Ashia's hand and began to thank her, because with her help he would be able to buy a house. The girl smiled and agreed. She thought it was pretty brave. In the western desert city of Luaport, a beautiful girl was walking through the market with a bag of groceries in her hands. She looked at her bag and began to list the products she had bought, bread and fish. Suddenly, someone called the girl by name and asked that she seemed to be helping her older brother. The woman patted the girl on the head and said that she was so small but so responsible. She gave the girl a piece of candy. The woman turned around and walked on with good luck to Marin, who was thinking that she had been given a piece of candy. Marin looked at the sweetness and smiled. She was happy that she was so lucky today. The girl went on with thoughts of what a pleasant breeze it was today. She decided to take a walk before returning. Marin walked on serenely. After a while, she was still walking. A herd of animals ran past her, and the girl kept walking on. She suddenly stopped and raised her head. The girl thought about what to do, because she was lost. Meanwhile, Keima and the girls were riding camels through the desert. The guy suddenly noticed something. He was looking at the horizon, where the city, Luaport, was visible. Laura said they would cross the river by ferry, cross a couple of mountains, and finally reach the oasis where the horned pufferfish lives. Feenal was glad that they had finally arrived after a long journey. Verona agreed, talking about how much had happened along the way. The guy was also thinking about how much had happened. On the border with the desert, they were playing with some ruffian to cover part of the trip expenses. And with the money we won, we rode sand dolphins to cross the fast sand zone in the desert. They also fought semi-pale classes of monsters along the way, and so 2 weeks of their search for the horned pufferfish passed. Verona said the words that the guy is stubborn after all. They could just talk to Sister Lilina about the money for the house. The guy laughingly replied that it was just too much to ask a girl. Female said that returning to the desert before the wedding feels like it's their honeymoon. Roran was a little confused by these words. She suddenly told Keima that they couldn't and that the guy wouldn't even think about it. This will have to wait until they get home. The guy didn't say anything and Laura sighed accusingly. Laura turned around and said the words that girls are too loose. She said that they still have a long way to go, so they should focus. Suddenly, Laura saw a girl lying unconscious on the ground and exclaimed loudly. The guy immediately ran to her when the girls wanted to inform Keima about her. The guy lifted Marin's head and shouted at her to hold on. He asked what had happened. Marin opened her eyes a little, and the guy joyfully uttered the words that the girl had woken up. She was trying to figure out who he was. The girl looked around and thought that strong hands were holding her, and a voice was calling her loudly. She looked confusedly at the guy in front of her and wondered if it could be her love. Keima took the girl, saying that it was great that she had woken up. He said the words about her getting up when she suddenly sat down and almost cried. After some time, the guy found out that Marin got lost on her way home from the market. She walked all day and passed out from hunger. The girl confirmed his words. While Marin was sitting and eating, Laura pointed at her and said with a smile that this girl was so frivolous. Keima replied that it was not for Laura to talk about it. Marin thanked them contentedly for the meal. The guy asked if she was finished, to which the girl replied in the affirmative, saying how delicious it was. Keima said that they probably need to go to the city first and find out where the girl lives. Laura replied that it looked like it. After a while, they came to the city. The guy apologized loudly and said the words that his younger sister had caused them so much trouble. He scolded Marin because he had already told her before to ask people for directions if she got lost. The girl replied that she thought she could find her way if she tried. The guy came to his senses and introduced himself. Karin is the owner of the hotel they came to. He said that their parents died 3 years ago. Karin grabbed Keima's hand and asked if they were adventurers. He asked if they had decided which hotel to stay at. The guy replied that he hadn't yet, so Karin quickly offered them a room for 4. The girl's brother turned around with the words that he would quickly prepare food. Keima thought that he was quite aggressive. At that moment, Marin pulled on his jacket. The girl apologized and said the words that she wanted to express her gratitude to the guy properly. Laura said the words that this girl is so attached to Keima. The guy replied with a smile that just a feeling of gratitude was enough for him. Marin blushed and repeated the words that she wanted to express her gratitude properly. Suddenly, a hand was placed on Keima's shoulder. Karin said the words about the guy just giving up, because Marin will never back down if she has already decided something. The guy awkwardly agreed. Karin handed Marin a bag. He said the words that her savior is his savior, so she can use this money to thank him tomorrow. The girl gladly accepted a bag of money from her brother. Laura shoved the guy and wished him luck with a smile. The next day, Keima and Marin went for a walk. The guy asked the girl about the sand sharks. The girl told him that they were a local feature. The guy asked if they were some kind of shark. Marin answered in the affirmative, saying that sand sharks live in the fast sands south of the city. Fishermen catch them every year at this time. The guy was surprised. First they were sand dolphins, now they are sand sharks. The girl said the words that they used to cook them often, even before Mom and Dad died. She said they really liked it. She said the words that this is why she wants to treat the guy to this dish. The guy called out to the girl in surprise and then stroked her head with a smile. He suddenly took his hand away, which is why Marin asked what might be wrong. Keima replied that it was nothing. He just thought that the girl was very strong and his hand was on its own. They went on to the market. The girl asked in frustration that they really didn't have a sand shark. Marin asked about what is usually not caught at this time. The trader replied that this year, the sharks are angrier than usual. A lot of people were injured and fishing was postponed. After explaining, he apologized to the girl. Marin drooped silently. She said the words that she wanted to treat the guy so much. Keima looked at her and stroked her head. He told Marin that there was no need to cry because he would quickly go down and get it for her. She asked the departing guy what he meant, to which he replied that she should just go back to the hotel and wait for him there. He asked her to try not to get lost. After these words, Keima quickly set off on his way. He ran to the place where Marin said there should be sharks. He looked around and jumped down. The guy landed right next to one of the sharks, which immediately opened its mouth to attack. Keima deftly jumped up, stepping on the head of the sand shark, which was disoriented. After that, the guy grabbed her by the tail and swung with a loud scream. He threw the shark aside. The guy sighed and then returned to the city. He was met by Karin, who laughed because the guy surprised him. Marin told her brother about Keima, but he still asked how the guy managed to find such a great sand shark. The guy awkwardly replied that a nice neighbor had given it to him. Laura said skeptically that they believed him that way. Marin was delighted to say the words about how the guy got her. Laura was shocked that the girl believed him. Karen stroked the girl's head. He said that since Keima had got it for her, she should cook the best dish she could. The girl began to carve up the shark. She gutted it and then cut it into small pieces and fried it. She brought a plate with a ready-made teriyaki sand shark. Laura uttered words about how brilliant and seductive she was. Keima agreed. He just looked at the food and he was already drooling. He said that he would not stand on ceremony then and thanked him for the food. He tasted a piece and was shocked. The light texture of the sauce was just fine. The guy was thinking about what a luxurious taste. This is definitely the deserved king of the seas. Laura tearfully said that if she could eat such food every day, she wanted to stay in this hotel. Marin awkwardly replied that the girl was exaggerating. Keima said that it really tastes much better than his cooking, even so much so that he is ready to hire Marin as a personal chef. The girl was surprised by these words. She came up and pulled the guy by the jacket, who looked at her questioningly. Marin confusedly said that she cooks and cleans perfectly, and she can also protect herself. For this reason, she also wanted to join the adventure. Keima. The guy was a little confused by this. He thought about how it sounded like another confession. He replied that he was glad of her offer, but she needed to take care of the hotel. Then Karim said that you don't have to worry about it. The girl's brother suddenly announced that he was going to get married next month, which surprised everyone very much. He said that his fiancée has a childhood friend named Fran, so from now on they will support this place together. Keima awkwardly offered his congratulations. Karin patted Marin's hair and said that it was not about that now. He said that the girl really seemed to like them very much. The guy said she was a very nice but a little clumsy girl. He asked if they could let her join them. Rorona didn't mind. Famil was glad to make new friends, and Laura was glad that she would be able to eat a lot of delicious food. Keima looked at the girls with a smile. The hero held out his hand to the girl. He replied that they were taking her. He told Marin that he would be happy to work with her. The girl blushed deeply and was embarrassed. She exclaimed the words that she would also be happy to work with them. Karina said that he understood, and then asked if this meant that they had called him to catch the horned pufferfish at the oasis. Keima confirmed this and said that they needed a lot of money to buy a house. Karina grabbed Keima and said that he could not believe that he would marry 3 women, after which he declared that as a man, he was very jealous. Keima looked at him and exclaimed that he already had a bride. Marin was shocked to hear that Keima was getting married because he was doing it to someone other than her. She was really unhappy about it. Karin cleared his throat, after which he said that the smell of the oasis is complicated, and Keima is really not that simple if he is going to go there. The guy asked if it was really that dangerous there, as his interlocutor says. Karin said that this area of the oasis has become home to big monsters, and no one goes that far. He asked if he still wanted to go. Verona smiled and said that there was no need to worry. She was very difficult, and therefore she would be able to protect everyone. Karin said they shouldn't hesitate to retreat if it gets too dangerous, because Marin is with them. The guy put his hand on Marin's shoulder, after which he told her that they had once fished on the way to the oasis, and therefore Marin would guide them. Keima smiled and said that he trusted Marin with this. The girl was silent. Keima asked if she was okay, and only after that she came to her senses and gasped, blushing a little in her face. Marin exclaimed that she was good at cooking and cleaning. Keima smiled awkwardly and said that she had already talked about it earlier. It was quite bright outside at that moment. They left the oasis by boat. Marin sat with her fishing rod lowered into the water, trying to gather herself. Suddenly, her fishing rod pecked and pulled down. Marin jumped up and pulled it towards her, also noticing that the fish was very big. Laura watched this with admiration. In an instant, she pulled out a rather large fish. Laura admired how beautiful this fish was. With a smile on her face, Marin said it was a clownfish. Keima turned around and asked with interest what kind of fish it was. With a smile on her face, Marin said that this is a very rare fish that has the properties of a hermaphrodite to change its sex. She explained that for them, the more caviar they put aside, the better. That is why large fish from the flock become female and mate with the male. When the females die, the males change their gender. Laura exclaimed admiringly that Marin knew a lot. The girl laughed and said that it was a mere trifle. Keima noticed that Marin looked very proud. The guy took a closer look and noticed that they were almost there. Female agreed and said that they had almost arrived at the oasis. The guys laid out tents and also put torches next to them for better lighting. They put the fish on skewers and put it over the fire in order to cook for themselves. Keima went up to the others and noticed that they were frying the very fish that Marin had recently told them about. The girl agreed and said that he should try it if he wanted to eat. He closed his eyes and said that he could try. After taking a bite, he saw that he had a new ability. He was surprised and said that they had been gone for quite a long time. It was a first-level gender reassignment ability. Keima was a little surprised and fell silent. When he saw the name of the ability, he stopped. Because of the sex change, which allows you to change the gender from male to female, he had goosebumps. Suddenly, there was a large explosion that did not bring pain, and the center of this outbreak was Keima himself. The girls were very surprised. Laura coughed violently and asked what was going on. Verona immediately started looking out for Keima, asking if he was okay. Suddenly, she froze, blushing slightly. The smoke cleared, and a female figure appeared in front of them. Laura and Verona looked at the stranger in disbelief and asked her who she was. The girl was very surprised. The unknown woman was holding a stick with a fish in her hands and looked at them in surprise. She touched her chest, then took the sword and looked at the reflection. She exclaimed loudly, asking what it was all about. After that scream, she noticed that even her voice had changed. Verona pointed her finger at her and asked if this girl was really Keima. Laura, perplexed, said that it seemed so. Laura suggested that he probably got the ability when he ate that fish, and that ability by changing sex. Keima, in tears, grabbed Laura by the shoulders and asked how he could bring everything back. Laura awkwardly looked away and smiled, after which she said that after he used the ability, it could not be cancelled. So, there's no way he can change that. Hearing such a categorical answer, Keima froze in shock. He cringed in horror, after which he said that now he would always remain so innocent. Verona, looking at him, said she had a question. Verona looked at them in disbelief and asked about the ability they were talking about. Keima lowered his gaze, then looked at Laura and said that these were unforeseen circumstances, and he wondered if he could tell them. Laura grumbled and then said that it seemed there was no other way here. Keima came forward and said that there was something important that he had to tell them about, and it was about his strength. For a while, he told me everything that was necessary. At the end of the story, Verona repeated his words about the goddess and the movement in order to digest everything. Marin also said about his ability to gain new abilities and magic through food. Femel said it was now clear how he had given her some abilities earlier. Keima agreed and said it was all thanks to Laura. Keima bowed low and apologized to them for keeping everything a secret for so long. Verona smiled and said that there was nothing to apologize for, because he had saved them all only because of this. Femel agreed and thanked him for explaining everything. Marin smiled and said she thought it was a pretty interesting force. Keima smiled, and after some silence thanked them all. Suddenly, Femel thought of something, and she immediately called Keima by name. She said that just as he transferred the abilities to her then, he can transfer this ability now. Suddenly, the guy was very surprised, thinking about such a possibility. He clapped his hands and said that he understood. And this ability turns men into women, which means that if he gives it to a woman, then everything will be fine. He looked at Laura and said that he was in her hands. The girl said that it looked more like he was her test subject. Keima touched Laura's head, exclaimed about the transfer. After nothing happened, Keima stared at Laura in silence for a while. The girl said that absolutely nothing has changed. At that moment, a notification appeared on the screen in front of Keima stating that this is a special ability and cannot be transferred after receiving it. After reading it, Keima burst into tears and said that it was some kind of curse. He fell to his knees and desperately said that he would remain a woman for the rest of his days. Laura awkwardly said that it was the first time she had seen him so disappointed. Suddenly, she thought about it and said that technically Keima is a woman, and they should probably address him as her. Marin smiled and said that it seemed to be true. Verona thought about it and said what it might mean. She said that now 3 of them will marry another woman. Upon hearing this, Female immediately blushed. She thought of Keima as a woman, and images of their possible time together as spouses immediately appeared in her head. She exclaimed that she didn't care if Keima was a woman, because she would do anything to be with Keima. The guy turned around and awkwardly said that he did not want this. Verona thought about it and said that she understood, but it seemed that so far they could not find any solution to this problem. Verona asked them how they could leave it for later and decide after they set out on their way to the oasis. Keima stood up and said that they really should do just that. The wind was noisily passing through the sky as the guys climbed over the mountains and dangerous slopes. As a result, they met a reptilian monster in front of them, who roared loudly at the guys. Keima quickly kicked the monster, after which the reptile flew far back. Keima smiled broadly and told the others that they could go. Laura thought that even though he was a woman, he still had a lot of strength. 3 days passed like that. After the time spent on a long and difficult road, the guys came to the place, which Keima exclaimed joyfully. They noted that it is in this place that the horned pufferfish lives. Laura smiled and said that this place is huge. Keima looked at the water and said that he really wanted to dive there. Marin agreed loudly, and Laura said that she thought it would help them relax after such a long journey to this place. Femiel and Laura put their hands together and smiled slyly, saying that it was time for this. They agreed and said they were well prepared. Keima looked at them in disbelief and asked what they were talking about. After some noise on the island, all the girls put on cute bathing suits. They got together. Laura loudly exclaimed that swimsuits look best on the beach. Female agreed and said that it was so, even though it was an oasis. Marin also awkwardly said that she was also in a swimsuit. Rorona explained that Laura had made him with her power. Marin turned around and asked what about Keima. At this time, the guy was standing red. He tried to cover himself up and asked what was wrong with his swimsuit. Rorona smiled broadly and said that they thought he would like it. Laura exclaimed loudly that it suited him very well. The guy got angry and explained that they shouldn't mock other people's bodies so easily. Marin came up to him from behind and told them to watch, then touched his chest. Keima shouted in embarrassment. Marin broke into a smile and said that Keima was very gentle. The guy looked at her and asked her to stop. Laura said it was the first time she had seen someone behave like this with Keima. The guys still entered the water. They splashed and splashed while Keima was with them, still embarrassed to the point of redness on his face. They set up a net and played beach volleyball, having as much fun as they could. Little Marin was building a beautiful sand castle at that time, while small and extremely fast crabs were running along the beach next to her. It was already dark outside, and then the guys went to the hot springs. Wrapped in a towel, Keima lay in hot water and rested. He took a deep breath, thinking that he couldn't believe there was a hot spring there. Suddenly, he stopped talking, looking at himself. He still didn't know how to return to his native, masculine form. He lifted the water in his palms, thinking that he had promised them earlier that they would get married, but in this state it was simply impossible. Rorona went out to him and noted that he was there. The guy was confused and looked at her. Suddenly, he was very surprised and asked why she was without clothes. Rorona was completely calm. She sat down next to me and said they were girls, so it's okay. Keima closed his eyes and blushed deeply, after which he exclaimed that this was not how it worked. Rorona smiled and told him to just relax while she rubbed his back. Keima was surprised. Rorona came up behind him and began to wash his back with a smile. The guy wondered if this was really normal. Rorona sat with Keima by the hot spring and rubbed his back. The guy was confused. He looked back at the girl behind him and wondered if he was a girl now, but whether he should even be in this place. Rorona suddenly called out the guy's name, which made him flinch and exclaim the words that he had not seen anything. The girl started talking about the return of her former appearance. She asked the guy if she had found out anything. The guy awkwardly asked Rorona about her words. After that, he looked away while the girl was washing his back. Keima replied by saying that he had already tried a lot. He even learned the resistance to change skill with Laura's help, but it didn't work out. The guy looked down and said the words that there must be some way. Rorona understood his answer. The guy apologized to the girl. She started talking about the fact that she had recently promised to marry him. She cleared her throat loudly and addressed the guy by name. Rorona tried to start a conversation with him. The girl said that whether it's buying a new house or equipment, he always takes everything on himself. Rorona jumped up and said that the guy should stop doing that. She shouted at him to rely on them a little. The guy awkwardly called out the girl's name. Rorona carefully added the words that the guy should not worry about getting married, because they would wait until he returned to his former appearance. They will wait as long as it takes. Keima looked at the girl in front of him in embarrassment, and then said words of gratitude. Rorona, going back into the water, suddenly started talking about how uncomfortable it can be for a woman. She said the guy wouldn't pick her up like that. she was abruptly embarrassed and shouted words about the guy not paying attention to it because it was just thinking out loud. Keima just looked at her questioningly. The next morning, the guy turned to the girls with a smile and said that today they would go after the horned pufferfish. Laura looked at the guy and said that Keima was terribly energetic today. The guy mumbled awkwardly. He replied sheepishly that he was very depressed when he realized that he would not be able to become a guy again. He scratched his head and said that now he could only accept it. Laura replied with a smile that here was the former cheerful Keima. After that, the guy changed into a swimsuit and asked a question about who would go with him for pufferfish. The guy pointed at the girl and said that Rorona could take on the role of support. She agreed with the words that they could rely on her. Suddenly, Marin pulled Keima onto her clothes. The guy asked the girl if she would go with them, to which she replied in the affirmative. She wanted to see who lived in the oasis. The guy thanked the girl for such an offer, but warned that it would be dangerous. Marin exclaimed at this so that they would not worry, because she grew up at sea. Rorona said that Marine really knows more about the dangers of the sea than all of them, so she can go with them as a guide. The guy agreed, saying that the three of them would go. He said to try. Keima turned to Rorona and Marine, telling them to bow their heads then. The girls lowered their heads, and the guy raised his hand above them and used his transfer skill. Rorona asked the guy what it was, to which he replied that he had passed on to both of them, the underwater breathing skill that he had learned from Laura. Rorona looked at Maran in surprise and invited the girl to dive, to which she agreed. The girls simultaneously dived into the water with a loud splash. They were underwater. Rorona and Marin were surprised by what they saw. Rorona said that she could really breathe. The girl happily replied that it was so exciting, now she knew what kind of skills Keima had. The guy dived in too and laughed. He looked at the girls with a wide smile and said the words that it was time for them to start searching. Marin swam through shoals of fish and enjoyed their beauty. At that moment, the guy noticed something. He quickly retreated because something was spinning in front of him. Several creatures wriggled in the water. Marin said the words that it was a moon jellyfish. She's beautiful, but you shouldn't get caught in her tentacles. The guy replied that it seemed they didn't want to let them go. Keima quickly swung his sword and shouted for the jellyfish to get out. He chopped one up. The guy looked around and asked how many of them there were in this place. Rorona called out to the guy with the words that he should provide them to her. Keima agreed. A moon jellyfish began to quickly approach the girl from behind, which grabbed the girl, wrapping its tentacles around her. Rorona was trapped. She was held by a large number of tentacles. Even her sword was grabbed. The guy saw what happened, so he shouted the girl's name loudly. She said the words about being ambushed. However, she shouted the words that this would not stop her. The girl began to create a small amount of magic in her hand, which was wrapped in a tentacle. After that, she used a quick wind attack. From this powerful attack, the tentacles of the moon jellyfish, which held her body from all sides, tore, and the girl was finally able to free herself. After that, she quickly pierced Medusa with her sword. After the attack, she deftly landed on her knee with the words that she had figured out this place. Marin said the words that, as expected from Rorona. After this event, the search continued. She said it seemed like this tunnel was going to the bottom. The guys followed it further and found themselves in the water, in which they swam the rest of the way. After some time on the way, Keima enthusiastically exclaimed the words that they had finally found a school of horned pufferfish. After that, the battle with the horned pufferfish began. The guy looked at a bunch of defeated pufferfish who were exhausted and said the words that they probably had enough. The pufferfish fishing was a success. Keima began to take out a small bag from his back. He said it was the bag's turn. He cost the guy a lot of money. Rorona looked at him and asked if it was really a magic bag, to which the guy replied in the affirmative. He said that you can put 200 kilograms in it, that is, you will get about 20 fish. The guy began to stack the fish, saying that there is freezing magic in this magic bag. With pre-preparations, the products can keep fresh for a whole month and the temperature can be changed. Rorona replied that it was convenient. After a while, the guy said the words that they had put everything down. He turned to Marin, offering to return. He turned to the girl and called out to her. Marin pointed somewhere and told the guy to come over and take a look there. Keima walked over and looked where the girl pointed. He was very surprised by what he saw. They went downstairs. The guy was surprised to find ruins in such a place. Marin agreed with him, saying it was interesting. Rorona said she thought it was too suspicious. It's like they're being invited to watch. It looks like a trap. Suddenly, someone laughed from a high column and said that the guys still managed to reach this place. The unknown person jumped up high. There was a girl in front of the guys who greeted the guests. She introduced herself as Maloa, the protector of these ruins. She praised the people because they were able to get to this place. The guy replied to the defender that they were here completely by accident, to which the girl laughed again. She said with a smile that it was useless to hide, because she knew everything, even the reason why they came to the oasis. Keima was shocked by this statement. Maloa pointed at them with her finger and exclaimed that they had come to this place for hidden treasures. The guy looked at Marin in confusion and asked if the girl had heard anything about the treasures of the oasis, to which she replied in the negative. She was shocked herself. Rorona said that, let's say their goal is treasures, but why would a girl specifically tell where they are? Keima confirmed her words. Maloa looked at the guests and said that they had come all this way, so she did not intend to send them away. The defender said it would be nice to play a little bit. The guy exclaimed that it was not necessary. Besides, what kind of treasures were we talking about? Maloa raised her weapon high and shouted the words of her faithful servant's summons. At that moment, a huge fish appeared next to her. Keima and Rorona looked at what was happening with great surprise. The girl stroked the fish and laughingly asked how her beloved pet was. She asked if they could beat him. At that moment, Marin, who was standing behind, exclaimed the words that it was Gubin. Keima asked about it again. The girl said that because of its size, the Gubin is considered a sea king. It is a rare species. His hump is well developed, and it will be very painful to get hit. Marin added that sponges are amazing fish because they are born as females and then become males. The guy was surprised. He thought about what the girl had just said, and that the clownfish he had eaten had it the other way around. A thought suddenly occurred to him. The guy jumped up from the realization that this was it. He immediately went upstairs, and the girl called his name. The Gubin fish drew attention to a guy who was shouting for meat, approaching at breakneck speed. The guy was shouting for the fish to give him its meat. Keima quickly hit the fish and told it to get. The sponge began to spin from this, and then completely fell. The guy sat on the fish and joyfully began to cut it with his sword. Maloa snorted and said that people could do something, which attracted the attention of Keima, who was busy cutting up. The girl said the words that it was just a warm-up. The real test begins now. She pointed to the side and said that there were 5 floors in the ruins. There are strong servants on each floor who guard the treasures at the bottom, and when they have slain all the servants, Maloa herself will come out against them. The defender waved her hand and said she would be waiting for them on the lower floor. She hoped that people would please her, at least a little. After that, the girl quickly sped away, and the guy stood in disbelief and held a large piece of fish in his hands. He said with a smile that they were going home. Rorona asked in shock that they would not pass her test. Keima replied that, of course, he was interested in what kind of treasures were there, but he did not want to risk his life for them. Rorona replied that this was a typical Keima. He had no desire for adventure. After that, they left the lake safely. They prepared the puffer fish for storage and began to prepare the Gubin fillet. The guy took a piece and, saying that he would try, took a bite. At that moment, he had a new ability, a sex change, just as the guy thought. Keima suddenly turned back into a guy. He beamed with joy and exclaimed that he was back. He stood up and stretched, saying that being a guy is still much more familiar. Female suddenly realized what was the matter. She said that the features of the clownfish and the sponge cancel each other out. She was glad that everything worked out. She was wondering how it would end. Rorona agreed. She said that it was finally possible to return to the discussion of the wedding. Marin asked in shock how it happened, which caused Keima to ask what happened. The girl replied in disappointment that she really wanted to touch Keima's chest again. The guy shyly replied to Marin so that she would not be discouraged, because instead he could fulfill any of her requests. This interested the girl. She clarified whether any of them were accurate, to which the guy replied everything that would be in his power. Marin clenched her fists. She exclaimed that she wanted the guy to marry her, which surprised Keima very much.